Welcome everybody to the Don Lemon Show at a special time. We are coming to you with live coverage outside of a federal courthouse in St. Paul, Minnesota, where our host, our friend, our favorite independent journalist is going to be arraigned today. They came up with some charges. We'll talk to you about what those are, but the crime he's really being accused of is journalism. So I am Monique Presley, friend of the show, host of the Monique Presley Show on my channel here on YouTube. But today I am in as guest host to be with you at least through the first hour, where we discuss how we got here, what's happening right now in Minnesota, where Don did his live show this morning. I was with you for Hot Topics, but now he is preparing to be arraigned. What is an arraignment even? What does any of it mean? And as I said, how did we get here? But first, welcome Lemon Nation, welcome Lemon Heads, welcome Lemon Legends, welcome everybody who regularly supports Don's channel and supports his work. We thank you for joining us, not just today, but so many days where we know you count on Don and count on this channel in order to get the best information, the experts, the news that you need, and the information that matters. On January 18th, which was a Sunday in Minnesota, there was what's called a pop-up protest, where a group of protesters that was headed by Nikema Levy Armstrong has for years been actively protesting, popping up different places and protesting actions in the Minnesota area around St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota. They held a pop-up protest that day, which Don Lemon and Georgia Ford, as journalisms, learned of and covered. We know that what they were doing was covering it as journalists, because you can go to January 18th right here on Don's channel. You can watch the entire live stream. You can watch what happened in the church that day. You can hear Don talking about being there to cover the events, saying he's not a protester, saying he's there to cover the story. You can see him interviewing people, getting reactions, describing what's happening. But after that day, after Don did his work as a journalist that day, after Georgia did her work as a journalist that day, the Trump administration hopping mad, MAGA hopping mad, not just at the people who were protesting, but at the nerve of an independent journalist for actually covering the news. After multiple failed attempts by Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice at the behest of Donald Trump, after multiple failed attempts to get a judge to sign off on an arrest warrant for our host, our friend, Don Lemon, they actually even bothered to take it to a court of appeals, where a judge said there was no probable cause, where a court of appeals said there's no emergency here. If you're trying to get your arrest, you know how to do it. They went to a grand jury, which is a closed proceeding, where the defendant's not there or even informed of it, where the defendant's lawyers are not there or even informed of it, where it's just a prosecutor. It's just a prosecutor and a jury. And they say whatever they say, and we may never know what it is they said in order to get that indictment, but they did. They got an indictment for Don. They got an indictment for Georgia Ford, another independent journalist who's based in the Minnesota, Minneapolis area. And in the wee morning hours of Friday, January 30th, when Don was in Los Angeles covering the Grammys, they showed up in the middle of the night in their full gear. They sent federal law enforcement to facilitate his arrest, and they detained him there in a federal detention facility in Los Angeles until after 5 p.m., close to 6 p.m. the next day, after he had to present himself and be released on a signature bond. It's represented by Abby Lowell. We have the statement that he made that day, and you can see him coming out of the courthouse that day. He stood in front of the cameras and said that he is undeterred, that he will be committing these acts of journalism again and again and again It's his job, it's his purpose, it's his calling. It's what we count on him for and have for decades. So now, here we are today, where Don has to drop his life and hire counsel and fly to Minnesota and be present, because when you are charged with federal criminal offenses, I don't know if you all know this or not, but when you're charged in a criminal matter, you have to show up in person for each court date. Now, of course, most of the time you want to, because if you are a criminal defendant, you want to know every single thing that the prosecution, that the state, or that the federal government is saying, and you want to be able to aid in your defense. So even if you weren't required to be there, it's in your best interest to be there for whatever it is that's happening. And the action of today in St. Paul, Minnesota, is arraignment. It is where you are officially read the charges that the government is bringing against you, and you are entering a plea. We know that Don Lemon is not guilty. I expect to hear shortly that he has entered a plea of not guilty. Charges are read against you. You have a right to know the charges against you. You then enter a plea, and then the judge enters a schedule for the case. If they have any outstanding matters, we call them housekeeping matters in the law. If they have outstanding matters about what's going to be happening next, those things are discussed. A number of people will be arraigned today. We know for sure Nikema Levy Armstrong, who was heading the group of protesters that day, and 2 others at least, in addition to Don, will be arraigned today. So we don't know how long all of this is going to take, but we're here for you. We're here for all of it. And thankfully, I'm not by myself. We have guests who are going to be joining us throughout this afternoon of coverage. I'd like to welcome Kurt Bardella, publisher of the Watchdog Report on Substack and former House Oversight Committee spokesperson. Thanks for joining us, Kurt. Michael Fanone, frequent friend of the show, friend of Don's, former MPD officer who served for 20 years, including some time as a U.S. Capitol Police officer, and Justin Canoe, founder of the Tennessee Holler. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So I know that each of you have been following what's been happening with this case, not just with this case, but with this run amok Department of Justice that is pursuing enemies lists on behalf of Donald Trump, and has all the time in the world, all the money in the world to go after some protesters and 2 journalists in a church, but no time in the world to pursue co-conspirators in one of the biggest, seemingly sex trafficking, pedophilia, abuse cases in our nation's history. And they have no time, with 6 million documents worth of things that they could be doing, no time to pursue any of it. Mike, your thoughts?
I mean, it's outrageous. Going back to the event itself, I mean, I've said all along, knowing this administration the way that I do, they were looking for an opportunity to charge a person of color with a violation of the FACE Act. For those of you that are not familiar, the FACE Act was legislation that was enacted to combat the intimidation tactics of the Ku Klux Klan. And this administration loves the irony of charging Don Lemon, a journalist, a person of color, with a violation of that act. Again, like you said in your opening, you can go to Don's YouTube channel and watch the entire streaming event for yourself and see that Don was doing what he's been doing for the past 30 years and reporting on an event which was clearly of significance and importance to every American. And in addition to that, look at the irregularities. And I draw from my experience as a police officer for 20 years in the way that this administration and the Department of Justice carries out these prosecutions. First, going to the shopping of this arrest warrant to multiple judges, at the original or the outset of the investigation. When I was a cop, if you wanted to fall out of favor with judges and the United States Attorney's Office shop a warrant around to multiple judges. That's something that never happens, ever. And so that was the first red flag to me. And then they went forward and, obtained this indictment. And you said it yourself, Monique, we may never know what was said in that grand jury. But we do know in prior cases like Letitia James, James Comey, that the prosecutor in those cases, Lindsay Halligan, made some pretty significant, you can't even really call them errors. It was malpractice, which ended up, and this was in the grand jury process, getting those cases tossed. And then getting her tossed out on her ass as the head of EDVA, or the Eastern District of Virginia. And so that is a huge red flag. And then to the arrest itself. This is a nonviolent crime. It is, obviously Don was contacted, his attorneys were contacted. They offered to turn themselves in rather than allow Don to turn himself in, which I've seen, by the way, in cases involving violent criminals, involving people that had been indicted for murder. Once they had retained counsel, giving their counsel a heads up and giving them the opportunity to turn themselves in. Don said, I'm more than willing to turn myself in. They said no. They sent armed FBI agents, HSI agents to ambush him in the lobby of his hotel in Beverly Hills, where he was to cover the Grammy Awards, because it's all about an attempt to embarrass Don, an attempt to intimidate Don, and showing Americans, this is what we will do to you if you stand up and resist our administration.
Right. Independent media and media in general is under attack right now, Justin. And I think that people who are in your position, who have to kind of be on the wall daily, have a unique perspective on what is being required of you in this hour. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's on point. In moments like this, when people like Don are attacked by Trump, they're trying to make them scapegoats, but they end up making them heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And all he's doing is giving Don a bigger megaphone, giving him more power. And I think the best thing everybody can do right now is rally around Don and make them understand that when they do this stuff, all they're doing is making them more powerful. And, it's just shows, like you're saying about independent media, that independent media is the real threat to them. That's why they're going after him. They wouldn't be doing this to Don when he was on CNN. Right now, they're doing it because he's in the streets, he's in the church, he's on the front lines doing his job. And, I think it's incumbent on everybody in independent media, myself included, and everybody in media in general, to rally around Don and show that this is not going to be accepted and that we all have to take a stand here. On the right also. I always like to use the device of flipping this around and saying, like, if this was a Republican conservative journalist that this was happening to, how would the right be reacting? And there's no question. As we saw with Nick Shirley, when he was diving into daycares, they rallied around him and they had no hesitation in saying that he absolutely belonged in there. Don Lemon was in a church. They weren't forcing him to leave. He was doing his job. And if he was a Republican, they'd be rallying around him also. So, everybody needs to take a stand for journalism. And in this moment, this is an example of how far we've fallen. And now the courts, it's up to them to catch us.
Completely agree on all respects. And that is one of the things, right, Kurt, that is so hypocritical about this administration. Their positions are not principled ever. It's about if you're on our side or not.
The best example of that is, as Michael knows, is January 6th. Those are people that this administration have dubbed patriots. have given blanket pardons to. One of which who received that pardon was just found to be, guilty of child pedophilia. The idea that justice is served equally and dispensed equally is completely dead under this administration. And we just watched the other day the highest ranking law enforcement official in this country, take an oath, sit before Congress, and spend hours just lying and misleading and gaslighting and trying to convince the American people that what we see with our own eyes, what we read with our own eyes, what images we see on our screens isn't actually real. Anybody
Yeah.
who watches the full video of Don, covering this event can very clearly see he identifies himself as a journalist. He's there as a journalist, and he's interacting with people as a journalist. He is not in any way representing a threat to anyone's constitutional rights. He's not preventing people from practicing their faith. But it's very clear that this administration wants to use Don as an example to try to send that chilling message to every journalist who would dare question them, who dares to tell truth to power that this could happen to you. Because if we can do this to Don Lemon, we can easily do it to you. And I think that Justin's absolutely right, by the way. It just backfires. You're just making him bigger and more relevant and more important and meaningful. And I don't care if you're left or right, Republican or Democrat, whether you read, Breitbart every day or the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. Don Lemon right now is all of us in that space, because if the First Amendment isn't protected, absolutely in this case, and the freedom of the press's right isn't protected, then we will quickly backslide into something very dangerous, very anti-American. And it is textbook authoritarianism to try to hold the truth power, the people who dare to tell the truth, to try to scare them into being silent. And thankfully, we live in a time now where even the technology exists and the platforms exist, where even if we aren't backed by a big corporate conglomerate like Warner Media or Nexstar or Murdoch Enterprises, that there are avenues and channels that we can still get on, tell the truth, reach the people where they actually are, which is watching live streams, watching on their phone, following this stuff in real time, and that those vehicles exist for people like Don and the rest of us to tell the truth every day.
Michael, I got to tell you, when I watched yesterday, and I was on Don's show, was that only just yesterday? So day before yesterday, because yesterday Attorney General Keith Ellison was testifying,
Right.
and was, being given the business as they like to do, but was giving plenty back. But when I watched Pam Bondi, like Junkyard Bondi, like Pamela Joe was really, she was testifying like somebody who already has her get out of jail free card. She was speaking like somebody who has no fear of consequences, who's never going to need her bar card again once she finishes being the AG. Like, there was something very reckless about what she was doing. And I'm just wondering, as a career law enforcement person, what were your thoughts about seeing the top law person? I mean, she's supposed to be the law dog. Seeing the top law person of our nation conduct themselves in that manner in a congressional hearing with members of Congress.
I mean, she makes it incredibly easy for me, somebody who spent the better part of my adult life wearing a badge, not to view her as a legitimate law enforcement official. And I don't believe that she's a legitimate law enforcement official. I mean, she may, carry that moniker, and she may receive a paycheck for sitting in that office. But she's a Trump sycophant. She's corrupt. She's corroded. She's destroying the credibility, if there is any left, of the Department of Justice and of federal law enforcement in this country. And quite frankly, she's dragging down law enforcement across America, whether you're state, local, or municipal. Every American that I interact with, including current and former law enforcement officers, are starting to question their own careers and question, the loyalty of American law enforcement officials and these agencies, because they see how quickly they capitulated to this administration, which is so obviously lawless and extrajudicious, and acting outside of the Constitution. And so in that regard, I think she's actually doing all of us a service in that she is showing how much disdain the Trump administration has for individual Americans' rights. She makes it very easy to view her as an illegitimate AG.
Well, and there's another guest I want to ask about that. For everyone who's just now joining us, you're watching special live coverage on Don Lemon Show, on Don Lemon Show channel, because our host, our fearless leader, Don Lemon, is being arraigned in Minnesota today, and we are here to talk about it, to bring attention to it. I'm Monique Presley. I am guest hosting, at least for this first hour. I'll be back a little bit later, but I want to welcome now friend of the show, friend of mine, friend of Don's, Charles Coleman, ESQ, former not public defender, I wish, former prosecutor, current commentator, and also Aaron Haynes, who is the president of the National Association of Black Journalists. Guys, you were with us a couple of weeks ago on January 30th. I think everybody who's here might have been with us that day at some point when Don was arrested. And I want to go to you first, Aaron, because this is an affront. This is an attack on journalism. I'm calling it the crime of journalism is what they're truly accused of at this point. And I know that NABJ and other associations have something to say about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Monique, listen, we will continue to say that committing journalism is not committing a crime. And that is exactly what Don Lemon was doing, what Georgia Ford is doing. And we will continue to say that just because they are out of federal custody, they are back in a federal courtroom now, having to make the case that committing journalism is not something that should be criminalized. So, I mean, I just want to acknowledge that this is such a serious moment, not just for Don and Georgia, but really for journalism. And it should be for all of the public that cares about the public's right to know, because that is also what is at risk. And so, as president of NABJ, my role is to defend journalists and to defend press freedom. And so that is why we spoke up in support of Don and Georgia. We know that this situation raises really important questions about whether journalists can report on events, especially controversial or tense situations, like what was happening on the ground in Minneapolis, without fear of criminal prosecution.
Right. Absolutely. And, Charles, Aaron brings up an interesting point, because when she said they're out of federal custody, technically they're not, right? They were released, which means their physical body is out of custody, but they are technically within the custody of the federal government until these charges are dismissed. And if they don't show up for something, or if they don't do what they're supposed to do, then they will be immediately, once again, in physical custody. And to me, Charles, that's one of the insults about this entire process and taking people through it who have no business being under arrest, because even if the charges are ultimately dismissed, which surely they will be, you have still been through an ordeal.
Absolutely, Monique. And I've said on a number of occasions that for the right, the punishment is the process here. The punishment is the process of trying to attach a stigma of going through this, of the expenses that are associated with this. And at the end of the day, whether it's Don Lemon, whether it's James Comey, whether it's Letitia James, it doesn't matter whether the conviction is ultimately secured, at least for the right, because they tend to continue to feed red meat to their base. But for people who are unfamiliar with the notion of these proceedings, do not think that this does not take a mental toll on you, a financial toll on you, as you go through the various stages of what a criminal prosecution is designed to do. Whether you are filing a motion to dismiss, if you're a defense attorney, if you're responding to the discovery process, that is a laborious and time-consuming task. The federal government is well aware of that, and they have absolutely no qualms about putting Don through this, along with other people like Georgia Ford, along with other people like the ones that I mentioned, and they are well aware that it's very, very unlikely that they are to secure any conviction against either of them related to this indictment. But nonetheless, the punishment they have decreed is the process. And for people who are unfamiliar with how this works, please do not underestimate the difficulty and the different things that are associated with this, which can make it extremely laborious and extremely taxing. And that's exactly the point.
Kurt, you are kind of the person, one of the people we count on for letting us know when government is doing things wrong, but I'm always interested in calls to action. What is it that you're asking the public do when we are seemingly under attack?
Yeah, it's funny. I spent many years working in Congress at the House Oversight Committee, having a front row seat to seeing exactly how the levers of power and how government exercises them, both from the legislative side, but also executive overreach and what to do to rein that in. Now more than ever, we need to empower those who are aligned with us in this fight for fairness and equality and justice. And it shouldn't be a partisan fight. This is about things that are central to just being the United States of America that we should all be able to get behind. The idea of protecting the First Amendment, the right to exercise your right to protest the government, to speak out, to report on it, to just simply ask questions. These are centrally American things. Again, as I said earlier, I want Fox News to be able to ask the same questions that MS Now gets to ask without worrying about being prosecuted, persecuted, and having their livelihoods threatened. We should all want that because that's what makes our republic work. But we need the American people to get behind people like Don, even if you disagree with everything he has ever said. I can tell you, if this were Ben Shapiro, I would be just as outraged. I would find it just as dangerous, just as concerning. And that's why we all have to unite and get behind Don and send the message very clearly to the people in power right now who are leading this charade that we're not okay with it. That what we saw, the other day with Pam Bondi, that's not acceptable. That's not okay. And what I'm looking for Democrats, frankly, to do is if they are able to successfully take back the majority this November, when they resume having that power of the Judiciary Committee and the Oversight Committee, I want them to investigate all of these things. I want to know exactly who was calling the shots, who directed the Justice Department to take this action against Don. I want every email exposed. I want the malicious prosecution, the political targeting, all of it to become public, because the American people need to see this is what lawfare actually looks like.
Yeah.
This is what weaponizing the Justice Department actually looks like. We love to hear these Republicans go on TV and say the Biden administration did this and they targeted us, and we all know it's utter nonsense and bullshit. But what these people are doing right now, I guarantee you, there is so much email traffic, text traffic from the White House to the Justice Department about Don Lemon, and they are cheering him on. They are saying, "Go get him!
Yeah,
Make an example of him. Teach him a lesson." That's the stuff that we need to get exposed and put out into public light, just as we keep fighting to get all the files of the Epstein stuff put out in public as well.
Aaron, I know you only have a few more minutes with us. We are hearing that Don has already pled not guilty and that any minute he may be coming out. So we'll jump to that if we need to. But tell us, please, Aaron, have you all been working to put additional supports in place? Maybe you already had some, but you were talking about what journalists are going through just in order to be able to continue to cover the news when you are under attack by the most powerful law enforcement arm, frankly, in the world, at least in a so-called democracy. What kind of supports are in place for journalists, and are there things that they should be doing, ways they should be signing up, perhaps becoming members of the National Association of Black Journalists or others?
Absolutely a great place to start, Monique. But listen, I mean, we just had a town hall last week to convene other press freedom organizations that are also very concerned about the situation with Don and Georgia and are trying to figure out what this is going to mean for journalists. So many independent journalists, freelancers, these are people that are covering protests, that so many names that people don't know, who are worried. I mean, our members are telling us that they are worried about what this case means for them and their ability to do their jobs safely and without fear of being criminalized. And so NABJ is absolutely thinking about what legal protections we can bring to bear to help support those journalists should they be targeted. What safety protections do they need to have when they are out in the field attempting to cover these protests, making sure that journalists know their First Amendment rights, know what their rights are when they are out covering things, whether it be a protest or civil unrest, what may be happening next year with our elections, and trying to cover those fairly and accurately. I think that what does make this particularly concerning is also just the broader chilling effect that this is having, even as this case is moving through the legal system, the chilling effect is already beginning to set in, because especially for independent journalists who must be allowed to do their jobs, right? I mean, they have the same constitutional protections as journalists that are working for major news organizations. The First Amendment protects journalism, not employment status. So journalists are there to document history. They shouldn't be punished for witnessing it. And so we are thinking deeply about what that means, how we can show up for people as they continue to do their jobs with courage and integrity and clarity every single day, because that's what they deserve. That's what we deserve as journalists.
Aaron, I'm so glad you said that, because I have seen, even in the comments as Don and Georgia were appearing on different shows, they were like, are they really journalists? Who do they work for? Who's their platform? And that is employment. That's not the profession of journalism. But to add to the conversation, I believe we have State Senator Bluen here with us, who is running for Congress, and it's looking like is going to win. We hope so. In Utah, welcome. You know everything that has been happening, and we'd love to have your thoughts.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just tuned in. I think what we've seen happen with Don is just so disappointing, and it's so frustrating that journalists are being attacked in this country for just trying to get the message out. That's something we've seen all around, that the Trump administration is really cracking down on dissenting speech, and it's something we need to stand up for and fight back against.
In what ways has that informed what you've been doing in your campaign? And what kind of calls to action do you think we need the voting population, the electorate, to have in this hour?
Yeah, I think it really turns candidates in a lot of ways into messengers ourselves. I think it's so important for people to have trusted voices and to have elected officials who are, who see themselves as in some ways, disseminators of information and people who can get the word out about what's happening in our communities, what's happening to our constituents. I think that's been exciting to see people really tune in and follow along, because we have a big voice and a big reason to speak out against the damage that's being done. So I think we need to see legislation going forward that is protective of course, religious freedom, but of the right of the press to do their job. And that's certainly something that here in Utah we've struggled with in some ways in recent years. We've seen the legislature kick out journalists for dissenting views in certain occasions, and I'm incredibly frustrated by that.
Kurt, I think that one of the things we're learning as we go through this process is that nothing is a distraction. And I've been having to explain over and over again to folks, and you can talk about the way it's being handled also at the Tennessee Holler, with either one of you. But to me, because even the distractions are deadly, it's like we are in a nonstop inundation where we really can't afford. Aaron will understand this. We got to sleep in shifts. What is that like for people, whether at the Tennessee Holler or in watchdog status? What is that like when you're just in a constant state of news and, frankly, strong systems?
Yeah, and I'll go real quick, and because I want Just to be able to jump in here. The reason why I started the Watchdog Report was exactly what you just said. I kind of spent a lot of last year not writing a lot. I took a step back, and I wanted to create value where I could. I didn't want to just pontificate for the sake of pontificating. A lot of people do it. They're great at it, better at it than I would be, certainly. But when I started seeing some of these things unfold, it occurred to me that the strategy is very deliberate. It's flood the zone with as much shit as possible. And the assumption is we won't be able to keep track of it all. Therefore, the bad actors will be able to evade accountability. And so, leaning on my oversight background, I started the Watchdog Report because there needs to be an ongoing enumeration of all the flagrant waste, fraud, abuse, mismanagement, corruption that is going on. There needs to be an accounting of that, so that when we get the reins of power back, we can expose the totality of it all and hold the right people accountable. And there are so many people beyond the figureheads of Kristi Noem or Tom Homan or Donald Trump. There are so many people beneath that make this all possible. Some people have a conscience and are resigning when they're asked to do something that they think is immoral, unconstitutional, illegal. But there are too many that are continuing to do the job, and they hide behind I'm just following orders. Well, you know
Yeah.
what? People who just follow orders and use that as an excuse also are end up taking the lives of American citizens. That's not an excuse. That's not valid. And so, I think that is part of the understanding that they are trying to do so much all at once. And because it's so hard to keep track of it all, they think that everybody will be able to evade accountability.
Justin?
Yeah, this is kind of right up my alley here. The question, I guess, is how do we keep up with everything? And my answer would be, you got no choice. You have to. And I know it can feel overwhelming at times, and it feels like you want to throw up your hands and, say it's all too much, but that's what they're counting on. So, we're in a moment where we just all have to plug in, find our niche, whatever it is, whether it's, Kurt's site or the holler or running for office like the state senator is doing. You just have to plug in, find what works. And the other thing I want everybody to understand is, this fight is happening online. Like, yeah, it's happening in the streets, and it's important to put your body out there, and it's important to show up whenever you can. But also, we all live online right now, and that's where the fight is happening. So you're an influencer in your own world, and you have to embrace your power, seize your power, and understand that you're in this fight whether you want to be or not. And now is not the time.
So Justin, we're I think just going to carry a bit of this as Nakima Levy-Armstrong is coming out after the arraignment, and you can hear there's a pretty significant crowd out there as well. So we would expect that Don will be shortly following, but let's just watch a little bit of this.
Protect free speech! 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 Protect free speech!
It feels great. The justice will stand today. Justice will stand tomorrow. We will not be intimidated.
Sorry, my fault, bro. My fault. Excuse me. Sorry. I gotta get my camera, dude. Excuse me. Hold on. Just trying to plug in. Let us know when you are ready. Yeah, we will. Give us one moment, please. Turn around. Right. That's right.
Ready?
Ready?
All right.
Cameras? Yeah. All right, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone, and especially good afternoon to the people of Minnesota. Thank you all for being here. You have given us life because of your resistance to the authoritarianism, fascism, and tyranny of the Trump administration. We, the people, have to stand for our rights. We have to stand for the Constitution. We have to stand for our First Amendment rights to freedom of the speech, freedom of assembly, and freedom of the press. That's what the founders intended. And today, we have the federal government trying to weaponize the Department of Justice in order to silence us, in order to prevent us from speaking the truth.
That ain't right.
No, that ain't right. They are trying to prevent us from calling out a manifest injustice. And that is having someone like David Easterwood having the nerve to serve as a pastor at City's Church in St. Paul, while also serving as the director of ICE at the Whipple Building in St. Paul. Somebody say that ain't right. I am an ordained reverend. I am also a preacher. And the gospel that I serve believes in loving one's neighbor as you love yourself. Period. Not going into church on Sundays and preaching, and then Monday through Saturday, you are condoning brutality, terrorism, abuse, violence against women, and even murder. That is not acceptable. It is unconscionable. So we will continue to stand. These charges need to be dropped right now. How can the Trump administration and the federal government claim to care about justice when they are protecting pedophiles? They're protecting rapists. They're protecting people who have intentionally harmed women and children. And just because these people claim to be powerful, they claim to be billionaires, they are not above the law. That's right. So to have the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, sitting in Congress protecting these people shows why she is unfit to serve as the Attorney General of the United States. And let's not talk about Kristi Noem, who does not have the requisite law enforcement experience against terrorism, or anything else that would qualify her to serve as the Secretary of DHS. This was not a merit-based hire. This was a political appointment that has caused a catastrophe in the state of Minnesota and across this nation. So Kristi Noem must go. Now! And then let's not talk about Vice President J.D. Vance, who is married to an immigrant woman, but who is weaponizing his position and the power of the law against our immigrant neighbors. It's unfair, it's not right, it's unconscionable. And this man is an attorney, and he had the nerve to misstate the law, claiming that the ICE agent who killed Renee Good has absolute immunity. Wow. That is a lie from the pit of hell. If you are going to be in a position of power, then you need to respect the rights of the people, the rights of the Constitution, and our democracy. They need to be calling for the immediate arrest of the ICE agents and the federal agents who killed Renee Good and Alex Preddy. That's right. So at the end of the day, we stand for the people of Minnesota and across this nation. We stand for the voiceless. We stand for the vulnerable. We stand for those who have had their voices silenced, who've been terrorized, who've been abused, who've been bullied, who've been mistreated. We stand for all of those on the margins. And we center our power as the people. So again, we will continue to fight these unjust charges until they are dismissed. Amen. All power to the people.
My name is Chantel Allen. I am a St. Paul School Board member and one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter Twin Cities. This is land of the free, and you are seeing the home of the brave. That's right. You want to know about people who really
are continuing to monitor what's coming outside and going on outside and expecting Dawn to come out at any point. I do want to bring on Katie Fang. Welcome, Katie Fang, journalist and attorney and friend of Dawn's and friend of the show and friend of mine. And we also have with us Congresswoman Rebecca Ballant, who is with Vermont's at-large congressional district. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining. Sorry that we're here for this again. Katie, I know I'm going to be swapping with you any moment now. It looks like we just keep doing this dance. But before that, Congresswoman, your thoughts just on what, frankly, our Justice Department has come to. It's been a big and ridiculous week on the Hill. There's been, unfortunately, lots to cover that hasn't been good at all. But if you can just share with us your thoughts in this moment.
Well, I really appreciate that you're starting with that, because it is not a Department of Justice right now. And it saddens me to say it. But after everything that I have seen, certainly in the cases of Alex Preddy and Renee Good, and how they are not just not investigating what were clearly violations of their constitutional rights, their human rights, killing them in broad daylight, but then using the power of the Justice Department to then drag their names and their families' names through the mud. It's sickening. And what we saw on Capitol Hill this week with AG Bondi, she was not at all interested in answering our questions about how she is standing up and protecting the American people. It has been completely weaponized to go after the president's perceived enemies. And as a former history and social studies teacher, I taught government for years to students, and we have fallen so far from our ideals, so far.
Katie, what's up?
The fact that we're having an arraignment at all on these bullshit charges when, number one, I want to remind everybody, a magistrate judge refused to issue warrants the first time around to this DOJ. Number two, the chief federal judge in that district in Minnesota said he found, quote, no evidence of criminal conduct on the part of Don Lemon and others. The fact that now we have a grand jury indictment where, frankly, they may have done that in other jurisdictions, a la Eastern District of Virginia, but only after they failed to do so. And then we found out in the instance of James Comey that there was affirmative legal misrepresentations and misconduct by the federal prosecutor at the time, who was Lindsay Halligan. Makes us wonder what was presented to the grand jury here to get them to return an indictment against Don and others. I think
Go ahead. They want us to catch. Oh, that's our friend.
But are still working for the federal government. This is madness. It's time to wake up, Americans. It's time to get off your couches and stand with your brothers and sisters in solidarity. All power to all the people.
That is the energy in Minneapolis. I mean, look, I heard that Abby Lowell and the amazing legal defense team that Don has with him today in St. Paul at that federal courthouse, he is demanding the grand jury transcripts, as he should. He represented James Comey, got those because of government misconduct. And so, again, I am interested to see what representations were made to this grand jury after judges repeatedly said there was nothing here against Don and others.
I know that State Senator Bluen has to leave. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time and best wishes with your campaign. But we want to bring on Danielle Moody and Sam Sear. I think they are both here. Thank you for joining us. And I will go. We're waiting any moment now. Thank you, everybody. Let me just reset for a second. Don Lemon was arraigned today along with 3 others in a federal courthouse in Minnesota and entered a plea of not guilty. And as Katie said, which I'm glad to hear, Charles and I had just actually discussed, Katie, that we may never see those transcripts. I hope they are successful, because then we'll know what they actually claimed. Let me say claimed. I want to say lied and said was the evidence against these independent journalists. But Danielle, your thoughts?
I mean, I just think that it's absolutely outrageous that we're here, that we're at a place where we are arraigning journalists for doing their jobs. Like, I understand that the American people are being forced to take in a lot right now. You're forced to have your head on a swivel and constantly be berated and bombarded with grotesque abuses of power. But the idea that journalism is the only industry that is protected inside of the Constitution, and that right now we are seeing it violated in the most blatant way, is terrifying. These are the things that you learned about when you were in school, when they said they would come for the academics and the journalists and the artists first, right? That they would come and they would shut down they would shut down television networks, right? Like, these are the things that we understood as stuff that happened in other places, and they are happening here. They're happening in real time, and it's terrifying. If you're not terrified by this, right? Then you're really not paying attention that if they can go after Don, they can go after Georgia Fort and others, then people like all of us are not safe. Right. And I think that that's the shot across the bow that they were trying to do with this act against Don and against Georgia.
Sam, I want to go to you, but first I want to welcome on Molly Jong Fast. This is like the Lollapalooza of folks who know what they're talking about. I mean, it's a shame why we're here, but I'm so thankful for each and every one of you. Sam, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think the idea that if it can happen to Don and it can happen to Georgia, that it can happen to anybody is exactly the point. Like this is, in my estimation, this is less of a legal act than a political one. They are this is all about intimidation, and the relentlessness that they're going after this prosecution. I think whether they have anything legitimate or not given to a grand jury that would indict them, my guess is no. But in a large respect, that's irrelevant in terms of the message they're trying to send, which is we will come after you, we will harass you, we will attempt to bankrupt you. I mean, not everybody, if they start to do this in a big way, it's not like everybody's going to have the opportunity to have a pro bono attorney or has the money to do this. This is all intimidation practices. This is all, you want to call it authoritarianism. If you want to pair it with the greater agenda that they're embarked on with ICE, fascism, this is what the game plan is. They want to make sure that they're intimidating reporters. They want to make sure that they are sending the message, we will go after anybody. We don't care what your profile is. And I will say, it is also not a coincidence in my mind that consistent with just about everything that Donald Trump has done, they are going after Black journalists because it is easier for them to get on board a certain percentage of Trump supporters, MAGA supporters, not all, with the idea of just buying into that a Black person has done something problematic. And so it's a little bit easier, but they're building a mechanism and a machine. And this is one of the bigger steps.
Well, I want to certainly, Molly, hear from you because you have been talking, I think, always right on the nose about these things. But before I do, some housekeeping. It's shortly after the 3 o'clock hour we're entering in now. We're waiting on Don Lemon, who has pled not guilty today to these ridiculous, unjustified charges by this DOJ, this Trump-led DOJ, and leading us through the next hour of our coverage is friend of the show, independent journalist and attorney, Katie Fang. I am now magically panelist. Katie, over to you.
You're taking off your host hat, putting in your panelist hat. No, thanks, Monique. As always, I feel like this is deja vu, right? This is Groundhog Day for us doing this. But yeah, for those of you that are tuning in, thank you. As Monique just said, Don Lemon has appeared for his arraignment in a federal courthouse in St. Paul, Minnesota. At that arraignment, he entered a plea of not guilty. He entered the courthouse a little bit earlier, flanked by his criminal defense team led by Abby Lowell. And at this point, I wanted to turn to you quickly, Molly Jong Fast, host of Fast Politics podcast. Molly, it's not a coincidence, though, that this is the re-traumatization of the people of Minneapolis, St. Paul, is it not? Mm-hmm. Trying to suggest that he is reducing the number of federal agents, although as of today, I spoke with people there in MSP in the Twin Cities. They are still being terrorized with people kidnapped off the streets. But even if you're to reduce the federal agent presence there, the trauma continues by prosecuting people like local civil rights attorney Nakima Levy-Armstrong, who got arraigned today, and other local activists who were arrested as a part of this bullshit indictment.
Yeah, and I think, look, clearly they went to, I think it's worth pulling back and looking at why they went to Minnesota in the first place, right? They went to Minnesota because they saw a Nick Shirley YouTube video about a fraud that happened in 2022, a fraud that had been prosecuted by the Biden Justice Department, where people were in fact in jail. So that was why they went there. They didn't go there because it was next to the border. They didn't go there because there was some massive immigration surge. They went there because the MAGA audience wanted them to. And they targeted people who had legal asylum. And I think that, you know, they're targeting a community there that has legal asylum, that has lived there for many decades, and that has, you know, that it, I mean, Minnesota is in many ways an American success story. It's a state that has really good resources, that has really good immigration where people can come and live the American dream very successfully and very harmoniously. So like, it's important when you think about what's happening here to look at just, it's a blue state governed by, and, you know, I've talked to the governor there, Tim Walz, a lot. And like, you know, Trump is obsessed with Tim Walz. Why is Trump obsessed with Tim Walz? Because he's angry about the 2024 election. So there's just a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with immigration and everything to do with politics. So, and that I think fits in a lot of ways with the fact that they arrested 2 Black independent journalists. And, you know, so I do think that's worth thinking about.
Congresswoman Balint, you and I had actually, and it occurred to me a few months ago, you and I talked about the FACE Act, which is one of the 2 charges that all of the defendants are looking at in this indictment. And I went back to that video of our conversation. Yeah. And the FACE Act is the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. It is not designed for this. It is being perverted in the use of it in this prosecution. It's meant to give access, safe and free access to people who want to be able to go and exercise their reproductive freedom to be able to access these clinics. But when you and I spoke, Congresswoman, you and I were fact checking this DOJ. This Trump DOJ has actually dropped 3 FACE Act prosecutions, and Trump pardoned 23 people that have been convicted under this FACE Act. For
That's right.
what section? The part where they were harassing and terrorizing people trying to go into abortion clinics.
That's right.
That is the hypocrisy. And Pam Bondi said that this statute is the example of the weaponization against conservatives. And yet they use this statute, Congresswoman, against Don Lemon and these other people?
Yes, exactly. They have no shame. There is no bottom. They have no self-consciousness about the depths to which they will fall when it comes to their own hypocrisy. The other piece of this, and I was trying to find the case before we got on and I ran out of time, but there's also a case of extremist Republicans going to a church that was an LGBTQ friendly church in a service that was meant to be celebratory. So no, we all know this is about intimidation. It is about submission. This is about telling Americans, once again, do not believe what you see, right? This is Orwellian in every possible way. And what disturbs me the most is, you know, I spent time out in Minneapolis, St. Paul, talking to a lot of people. And to Molly's point just now, they knew they were going to be targeted, the people of Minnesota, not just because of this expose on something that happened years ago, but they knew they would be targeted because they were a state that 3 times, you know, in the last 3 presidential elections have roundly, defeated Trump. They knew they were a target because of the Derek Chauvin case. They knew that they were a target because of all the ways in which they have figured out how to protest in a very meaningful way and bringing the community together. And so it isn't random. But the fact that they can say that this is about freedom of religion and that this is an appropriate use of the FACE Act is just astonishing. And it continues to show us how they don't believe in a free press. They just fundamentally do not believe it anymore.
And, you know, Sam, this really does speak to the idea that if you can control the message, then you can control it all, because we have seen how effective, candidly, state-run propaganda arms work when you look at the ecosystem that's been created here, right? I mean, it is, to Molly's well-taken point, Nick Shirley was some pimply-faced kid that got some bucks that rolled out to Minneapolis and did some expose that was not grounded in anything factually real. And yet how much it blew up on the MAGA media ecosystem, and it really kind of fanned the flames of directing this attention to these particular cities.
Yeah, and I should just add, just to even go back temporarily, because I think this is important. Chris Rufo, who was the
we know him.
He was the guy who created the whole anti-CRT movement.
Right.
Chris Rufo actually was promoting a theory months before Nick Shirley got there, that this fraud was tied into Al-Shabaab, a terrorist organization. So this has been brewing, and this is the way they do it. And it's almost like some type of like a VC model where we'll place a bunch of bets and see what catches fire. And of course, again, you've mentioned the reasons why Minnesota would be targeted, not the least which you have an otherized population that is Black, essentially, and for their movement, this is sort of lower hanging fruit as they sort of like build up. And and again, that's what we're witnessing here. They're going after the press again, explicitly, I think, or specifically because the First Amendment is such a bedrock principle. And if you begin to weaken this, I'm also convinced that what is sort of subtextual here is they're pushing of the NSPM 7, which is the National Security Presidential Memorandum, entitled Countering Domestic Terrorism and Organized Political Violence. And targets of investigation include things that are supposedly anti-capitalism, anti-American, and anti-Christian. And so I think the idea is, if they can begin to whittle away at the idea that a protest in the context of a church, the protest in the context of a business, like we see protests in Target, for them allowing ICE agents to stage there. We see protests against the government, and they can associate that with Americanism. This is all building blocks. They have, I think, in the administration, their timeline is the 2026 election. And they are just building predicates, and they are building precedents so that they can go in and, as you say, sell the idea to their people enough so that people are not recoiling at the idea of maybe ICE agents going in and taking ballots out of Minnesota, or ICE agents going in saying, what's going on in California? They haven't finished counting their ballots, or Pennsylvania, where we know they're not allowed by statute passed by Republican lawmakers in Pennsylvania to count mail-in ballots before that day. They're basically just trying to expand what is within the realm of normal. And a great way for them to do that is to go at journalists, because journalists have been so sacrosanct in our country's history.
Danielle, and Congresswoman knows this so well, but Danielle, the Attorney General of the United States, I call her Pamela Joe, or Pammy Joe with the bad hair. But Pam Bondi this week refusing to tell House Judiciary if this was to Congresswoman Scanlon's questioning. She refuses to disclose the list of, quote, domestic terrorists that the DOJ is compiling pursuant to Sam's point, the NSPM 7, the National Security Presidential Memorandum 7, the executive order condemning Antifa. They refuse to turn that over, but they've labeled Alex Preddy, Renee Nicole Good, and anybody who has an opposing view as a, quote, domestic terrorist. And yet it's okay. The secret police, okay. The secret list of domestic terrorists, even though that's it's a legal fiction. There's no such thing as a domestic terrorist in the law here in the United States. But Danielle, they can obscure it, hide it, lie about it, not show their hands. But we're supposed to be able to trust this government that they're going to be prosecuting people in good faith.
I mean, I wouldn't trust Pam Bondi to like watch my house plant, right? Like there's nothing that she has said that when she was standing, sitting up there that would lead you to believe that she is actually the Attorney General of the United States. She was sitting up there as, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt for just a second. Obviously, folks, we see Don has walked out of court. He's flanked by his counsel and his security team. We are trying to figure out, I think, where we're going to be able to have Don be able to speak to the media and to the public. And so that's what they're trying to figure out right now. So he's not actually.
This isn't just about me. This is about all journalists, especially here in the United States. First off, I'd like to thank everyone again for their support, to my colleagues, countless journalists around the world, the Lemon Nation, my family and my friends. You all have showed up for me in a real way, and I am extremely grateful for that. I feel it. For more than 30 years, I've been a journalist, and the power and protection of the First Amendment has been the underpinning of my work. The First Amendment, the freedom of the press, the bedrock of our democracy. The events before my arrest and what's happened since show that people are finally realizing what this administration is all about. The process is the punishment with them. And like all of you here in Minnesota, the great people of Minnesota, I will not be intimidated. I will not back down. I will fight these baseless charges, and I will not be silenced. Thank you very much.
Tuning in, that is live footage of Don Lemon walking out of the federal courthouse in St. Paul after his arraignment, where he entered a plea of not guilty. And he came out and he accurately said the process is the punishment, as we've been talking about on this hour. He also said he thanked the people of Minnesota, which I understand that sentiment. They are fighting on the front lines of our democracy. He also said, I will not be intimidated. I will not be silenced. And I mean, Congresswoman, that's the plan, right? The silencing of the free press would mean that people like Don Lemon, who left mainstream, went into the independent media, continued his role as a journalist.
Yes.
And he couldn't say anything about what's happening in the world.
And we need independent media more than ever right now, more than ever. And it's also not lost on me that it was this week when a grand jury in DC threw out the case against my colleagues who serve in the military. And again, another ridiculous charge trying to intimidate them into silence. And I was talking with one of them on the floor the other day, and she was saying, look, it is about intimidation. It's also about taking our energy and our time and our money, because to fight these cases, especially when you look at the case of LaMonica MacGyver in New Jersey, this is a woman, a black woman, a strong black woman in her first term in Congress is now facing 17 years behind bars for doing her job. And it is costing her certainly emotionally, but also materially. And that is the point. That is the point.
You know, Monique, what doesn't escape my notice here is that the feds are doing this, right? You don't see state or local prosecutors doing it. And I will note something that I know Monique appreciates. One of the newest members of Don's legal team is Joe Thompson, who was the top federal prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minneapolis, St. Paul, who was the head of that fraud investigation and prosecution that the Trump administration loves to cite to as the basis for what they've been doing in their immigration surge over there and their enforcement. But Joe Thompson said no. He said, it's not going to happen on my watch. He resigned, started his own law firm with some other federal prosecutors, and now he's representing Don Lemon.
Absolutely. And that is exactly what this government deserves. They deserve for the ones who know the most, who have done it the best, all the best people to be on a side other than theirs. Because obviously Joe was a part of a huge group that left in protest. We've had that to happen in Minnesota. We've had that to happen for the national branch. And it's what I said this morning. I don't know, all the shows are running together, Katie, but I said, you know, when a U.S. attorney gives up their life's work You know, it's no small thing to get a job as a lead prosecutor in a U.S. attorney's office. And when these veteran prosecutors leave, that is their last act of protest, not their first. That means they were in there fighting, trying to do everything they could. But to the Congresswoman's point, they were at a point where they were not willing to obey an unlawful command, which is what we're not supposed to do in the military. We're not supposed to do it as government lawyers. We're not, we take oaths in those jobs to uphold the Constitution. And so when you see U.S. attorneys, career members leaving, it means they tried everything else. And now they have to go. And so what Don has to his benefit is Abby Lowell, who all on his own is going to give them the business the same way he has with all of these other cases. But now when you add an attorney like a Joe Thompson to it, it means when they ask for grand jury transcripts, they know what's supposed to happen and that they're going to get them. It means that they have an understanding and a goodwill with the career people who are still in that office who don't want to be doing this job, who hate
such a good point.
You know,
Such a good point.
Any lawyer, trial attorneys, especially government lawyers, there is a time at some point where you come in, you're like, I hate this case. I hate this effing case. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. You know, but you supposedly, when I was running civil division, I had the option of settling. I wasn't stuck with the crappy cases. The point of giving government attorneys this vast amount, this broad discretion, is that they can do the right thing. And now, Katie, we are missing that piece. Their discretion's being taken away from them. Their ability to make decisions, to assess cases and make right decisions is being taken away from them. And it all belongs to Pam Bondi at the behest of Donald Trump.
I mean, you know, Molly, the specter of Pam Bondi looms large. And yet, to Monique's point, these individual U.S. attorneys' offices are all failing. They're like fail sons all over the country, right? And do you think that they can effectively kind of narrow the stink that the entire, I call it the Department of Obstruction of Justice these days, that the DOJ has? Do you think that they can actually eliminate that or remove themselves to be able to prosecute this case on the merits? Because look, there's going to be massive pretrial motions in this case, Molly, that are just going to highlight exactly how bad things were here. But I do think that they're going to try to make sure that they're not tainted by stuff like the failure to obtain grand jury indictments in other places.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real question. I also think that Bondi has had this extremely bad week. Where her Wednesday testimony, I mean, I still think people are trying to digest it. And it was, I mean, you know, I ultimately think the thing that has her in the worst shape at this moment is probably the Epstein stuff, because she talked such a good game and then has since then really retreated, and that she just didn't have a lot of answers and did have a lot of screaming. I think that all of this undermines, I mean, in some ways, you know, thank God that they're so incompetent, because if they had just sort of picked one or two ways in which they would remake our government, you know, an attack on journalists, just that, or something smaller, they could have maybe got it done without attracting so much notice. But the good news is they are so incompetent that, you know, it's hard to know what is going to, I think, derail her first. If it's going to be the Epstein stuff, if it's going to be this, if it's going to be the lack of grand jury indictments, the inability. I mean, it's just, you know, and this this story from the Wall Street Journal today about Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski, like it does feel a lot like Trump 1.0, where the ship is so leaky that it's hard for me to imagine what, you know, that one single thing will be the same.
Danielle, it didn't escape my notice the diversity of the people that were there protesting and showing up in support of these defendants today. I think it's a sign of how there is an opportunity here to bring communities together, to unite behind a common to unite behind fighting a common foe. And I don't want to be Pollyannish about this, because we still are in a very brutal fight right now for our civil rights and to defend our democracy. And yet, Danielle, I do think that there are ways for us to continue to not lose our souls along the way, and acknowledge that the mutual aid, the community organization, the fact that people are saying it's not just isolated to one particular group, that this is an opportunity for people to find that common goal.
Yeah, I think that, to the point that Molly just made, that if this administration had just chosen one group, one issue to really rail against, then everyone else could feel safe, right? They could have the illusion of safety. Well, he's just going after the immigrants. He's just going after the blacks. He's just going after the trans folks. He's just doing this and just doing that. And so if you're not in that bucket, in that box, then you could, feel comfort in the illusion of safety that you have. But I think that what he has done, what this administration has done really successfully, is create a common enemy where you are looking around and you're saying, wait a minute, I could be a mother of 3 and shot dead in the street. I could be a person that is a lawful gun owner and murdered in the street. I could have my child dropped off from preschool and then be detained. Like, everyone has a piece of this. Everyone can resonate with this, and everyone can also share fear around it. And so I do think that there is a community building aspect. But the other piece too, we talk about their incompetence, which I think is obviously very real, and we see it all the time. But I also think that they weaponize their incompetence. It's almost as if to shove it in our faces, just how unprofessional, just how ignorant, just how debased they can be. And look, nothing will happen to me. Right? Like, we kind of forget when we're watching Pam Bondi. I wouldn't call it a testimony before the committee. We kind of forget that this is an important job, the Attorney General of the United States. It's kind of a big deal, right? When you hear the Secretary of Health say that he snorted coke off a toilet seat, you kind of forget that this person is supposed to be in charge of the health and well-being of 330 million people. And so there's this rubbing in our faces of their incompetence, because it's almost a challenge. Like, what are you going to do about it? And I think that is something that we can't just allow to numb us. Because we should want more, we should expect more, we should demand more. And that's what I think that our collective action should be about as well.
We're hitting the 3:30 p.m. Eastern clock right now. I want to thank Congresswoman Becca Balint and Danielle Moody for joining us and kicking off our 3 o'clock. So grateful for the two of you being so strong in your voices. Thank you so much for being here in support of Dawn and in support of our democracy. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And we're going to bring in now 2 folks that y'all know super well here, Lemonheads, and my dear friends for a long time, Mehdi Hassan and Joy Ann Reid. No, this is not MS ... But I figured if there were 2 people that could join me in this conversation about independent media, I think it was going to be Joy and Mehdi. But look, Mehdi, I want to start with you, my friend. I know you're a little bit trapped for time. Mehdi, what the hell? Number one. And number two, this, they kind of flirted with you for a while too, right? Like, the threats of coming after you, Joy, y'all are not strangers to this. But Mehdi, this has become very real. Dawn said the process is the punishment. You just heard Danielle say they don't get punished when they fuck it up. Right? Yep. Oops, sorry. Screwed up that indictment. Let's try it again.
Yes.
Oopsies, let's do it again. I mean, I want to bring in, the name of Georgia Fort. Georgia, local, independent, strong journalist as well. I mean, this is a really tough storm to withstand, no matter how much support we're giving people, right?
100%, Katie. And, we live in a country where I just came back from London last night. And, every time you come back into the country, you wonder about my phone and my laptop. Do I take my burner phone? What do we do with our devices? Get rid of Face ID. These are the discussions I'm having with my team and our security people and our lawyers. And this is not what you should be doing in the United States of America. This is a conversation you should be having in India or Hungary or Russia or whatever it is. Not in the United States of America. Certainly not under a party that claimed to be the free speech party that went crazy because the Biden administration administration suggested that people shouldn't put anti-vaccine information on Facebook, and they said that was the greatest censorship in the history of the United States. And here we are, them arresting journalists. When you say it becomes very real, I mean, that morning when I woke up to that Don news, I said to my wife, I said, they just arrested Don Lemon. And there was kind of a moment of silence between us because, yeah, we're all on that shit list in different ways. People have asked me, where are you on the enemies list? And I said, look, I'm very modest. I'm probably in kind of 175, 220. I'm probably not as high as Liz Cheney and others, present company excluded. But they will get to all of us at some point. I think that is the key. We're only a year into this administration, and look at the damage they've done to the First Amendment in 12, 13 months. They've got another 3 years. And Katie, as you rightly point out, they don't just give up when they fail. They just try again with the same bullshit. Look at what's happened with Tish James. Look at what's happened with Jim Comey. Look at what's happened with these 6 members of Congress. They just try a different judge, a different court, a different prosecutor, a different grand jury. They tried with Don, with 2 other judges before they turned up in LA. So these people are as persistent as they are incompetent, and that is a problem for us. But look, the assault on the First Amendment goes beyond Don, beyond the media. It's free speech being chilled across the board. And it really, really pisses me off that some of those quote-unquote centrists, quote liberals, who were signing open letters about free speech, and all these college students who are all snowflakes, and all those guys who bored the shit out of us for the last 10 years complaining about free speech on the left being dead. I don't see any of them now. Where's Matt Taibbi? Where is Barry Weiss? Where are the Twitter Files people? Where are the people who wrote that fucking Harper's letter? Where are they?
Well, Barry Weiss is too busy destroying CBS, so she's going to take a rain check on this fight, Mehdi, as one would, I guess. But Joy, look, it's interesting because a couple of thoughts. The Washington Post today had a spectacular article highlighting how the video evidence in this case completely contradicts the allegations in the indictment that's again, right? So, and I will say this. What Don was doing as an independent journalist is what he did in mainstream media as a journalist. He was being a journalist, right? So for what it's worth, we acknowledge our brothers and our sisters where they are doing the good work. And sometimes they're still pulling that shit off at WAPO despite gutting them by 300 journalists the other day. But there is still a way to be able to rely on, obviously, the media to still be fighting this fight to bring the truth to the people, because I was impressed that WAPO was doing this. Just like WAPO and the New York Times, when Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy were murdered, they were showing some videographic breakdowns saying that whatever was coming from this government were lies in terms of how they said it all went down.
Yeah, and I think there are still good journalists at the Washington Post and at all of these places, despite them being gutted. There's still good journalists at CBS News. I think we must acknowledge they're in there doing the best they can under the circumstances they find themselves, with Barry Weiss trying to suck up to Donald Trump. But, I thought it was interesting that, yes, the Washington Post has been vigilant, at least that part of the Post, in terms of just presenting the facts. But the facts in the Don Lemon case are so simple as to be almost absurd, right? Yesterday, Jim Jordan, or the other day, Jim Jordan, when he was trying to suck up to Donald Trump by sucking up to Pam Bondi, led a part of his questioning to set Don up and say, you see, he found out where the protest was going to be, showed up. It was called Operation blah, blah, blah. He then followed those people into the church. He literally described what journalism is and tried to get Pam Bondi to high five him and say that it was criminal. And maybe Jim Jordan isn't familiar with journalism, but if you as a journalist are covering a protest movement, the first step is to do some intel and find out where the protest is going to take place. That's what he's accused him of, literally on the dais inside of United States House of Representatives. Then he says he followed those protesters into the church. Again, that's journalism 101. You discover where it is, you get good sources, you go in, you then interview people on both sides of the aisle. Everything that Don Lemon did is not only what journalists do, it's what Don Lemon does all the time. He does it on the Hill, he does it in cities, he does it all over the country. And so the idea of trying to criminalize that, I think, is trying to send a message, just like arresting the protesters, that we need these protests to become silenced, meaning they won't be covered. Meaning people will be too afraid to even text with someone who is a dissenter. Because if you text with a dissenter, you might then be charged with a crime. If you then find out where the dissenter is going to be protesting, you might then be charged with a crime. If you attempt to film a protest, you might then be charged with a crime. If journalists respond to that by hesitating to do that legwork and to do that journalistic work, then it won't matter who dissents. It won't matter who protests, because a protest without the visual memory of it, the visual record of it, doesn't. It's like a tree falling in the forest when no one hears it. And so that's what they're trying to do. They can't stop people from dissenting. So they're now trying to stop journalists from showing people dissenting so that the rest of the public will then be what Barry Weiss is trying to create at CBS, anesthetized in sort of a Fox News universe where there are no protests. Everyone is agreeing with this. Everyone agrees. Tom Homan came out yesterday and said, we've never arrested anyone in a school, a church, or a hospital. There are literally lawsuits against his department
There are
right now
videos
for
of
doing
it.
all three of those things.
There are videos of it.
And there are videos of it. And they're trying to get everyone to be like Fox News viewers, to be anesthetized, to be essentially North Koreaized, so that we won't even question what they're doing. That's why they're going after Don.
Well, Sam, you said that, right? Sam, you said this NSPM 7, this, go after Antifa, National Security Presidential Memorandum 7, which criminalizes free speech. Look, they've been using a federal statute to go after people when they all wear black to show up at a protest, or if they are on a signal chat together where one of them goes and maybe does something illegal. They're like, oh, but you guys were all in that signal chat, so you're all guilty now of domestic terrorism, so I'm going to prosecute you for that. We're not going to actually prosecute the real criminals. We're not going to actually go after the Epstein files co-conspirators, but we're going to take our time. And you know what, though, Sam? We are talking about something that's not the Epstein files, so maybe we're proving that point, right? Let's talk about something else. Don't look here, look over here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I think ultimately, though, it's just that this is a question of just trying to intimidate people and basically saying you have two choices. One choice is to not get involved with pushback against our policies and pay a price, or not pay a price, or to get involved in pushback of our policies, whether we're talking about people on the streets of Minnesota, of Minneapolis, blowing their whistles, or recording people because they're going after observers very, very intensely. We just don't hear about it as much. And it's all part of a whole in terms of intimidation. And on some level, I don't think it's a coincidence. Again, in addition to the fact that you're talking about two black journalists, I don't think it's a coincidence that it's Don Lemon, who is A, not necessarily backed by a big corporation anymore, but B, a relatively household name, so that it is basically saying that, like, well, if they can go after Don Lemon, they certainly come after Sam Cedar. If they go after Don Lemon, they can certainly come after, Status Quo or, some other group that is shooting video. It is an intimidation mechanism. And I don't even think, like, as ridiculous as the charges are, I don't even think that's relevant, right? Because we have a sort of a paradox here. The incompetence of the DOJ now, as a function of having lawyers brought in who have no expertise whatsoever in what they're doing, but also as a function of, like, the over a dozen Minnesota U.S. attorneys that have resigned in the past couple of months. On one end, you get rid of the head of the DOJ's antitrust division, and the incompetence then achieves what you wanted to achieve, in the sense that we're just going to let corporate power run amok. We're going to do we're just going to check off a box, say this merger is fine because we've gotten payoffs, or our lobbyists have done it. And on the other end, there's an incredible incompetence in the more proactive things that the DOJ would do, rather than gatekeeping, whether you're allowed to have a merger, where they're going out and trying to prosecute people. They're going to fail. They're going to fail and fail and fail again. But they do know that the intimidation mechanism works just as well if we take it to another grand jury, because you're still, Don Lemon's still being harassed. He's still being dragged into court, still having to pay for defense attorneys. That's the part that is going to function, even though they're incompetent.
Mehdi, I know that you got to go, and then so I want to let you have the floor, and then I want to go to Molly, because I know I got to lose Molly too, so I want to be able to reach both of you. But Mehdi, go ahead.
I feel bad for speaking before my friend Molly. That makes me feel very bad. These are my favorite people, by the way, on this guy. I don't know how Don Lemon. I'm very sad. I'm very sad that Don Lemon got dragged into court. But the only silver lining is I get to be on a chat with Katie and Sam and Molly and Joy. Come on, what more do you want on a Friday afternoon? I'm sad to have to leave. Look, Sam makes the most important point of all. The harassment, right? Getting to these people. It doesn't matter whether they win or lose. It is about grinding you down, intimidating you, detaining you. They are the federal government. They have unlimited resources. They can exploit the law. They have men with guns to show up to your house. You mentioned Georgia Fort, that video she shot that morning, the creepy video of the guy in a mask standing at a window, looking into her house. That is what they want you to be afraid of. That is what they want every journalist and activist and politician now to be worried about happening to them if they speak out. And I think it's having an effect. Anyone who pretends it's not having an effect is lying to themselves. We're only human beings. Of course we're going to have those conversations. I'm sure everyone on this call has had those conversations with friends and family about whether they're going to get targeted. And look, we're not in Gaza, right? Thank God. We're not getting droned right now by a right-wing government as the people in Gaza, as the journalists in Gaza are. But these people in the United States want to take us down that direction. By the way, I only say this half flippantly, and this probably get clipped by libs of TikTok, but where are the Democrats on this? Why are they not saying, you know what? This is great. All these precedents you set, good luck, Fox. Good luck, Breitbart. Good luck, Daily Wire. Because that's the only language these fucking bullies understand, right? Is you want to use and abuse these powers? Well, at some point, you may not be in power. And then we'll hear us screaming about, oh, you came to our school board meetings. Remember that? Merrick Garland spied on our school. Nothing the Democrats did under Biden comes close to this stuff. So if they want to go down this road, then we need an opposition party that says, okay, we're making our own enemies list. We're making our own list for congressional hearings. We've got the FBI, Ben Shapiro, good luck to you. All these people, that's the only language these people understand.
Amen. Amen. Thank you for coming to worship with Mehdi Hassan. Mehdi Hassan, bye. Sam, Cedar, thank you also for joining us. Molly, last word to you as I bring on Asha Rangappa. I appreciate you. Oh, Sam, you can stay with us. No bye to Sam. Bye to Mehdi. Let's go to Molly. And we're going to bring on Asha Rangappa as we go to Molly. Molly, look, I'm going to ask you to put your crystal ball activated now. Do you think they would have done this if Don was still at CNN?
Oh,
it's a tough question.
I don't know,
right?
because
right?
the part of it was to not have someone who had institutional backing, right? They didn't want to have an organization to have his back because CNN is indemnified for things like this, and they have lawyers on staff, so it's less expensive. So I think that was part of it for sure. But also remember, Donald Trump is obsessed with CNN. And his first term, all he did was talk about CNN. So he definitely had some kind of attack. There's with everything with Trump, there's a racial component, right? Which is a way of saying racism. Yes. And then there's also a very genteel way of saying what we all know. And then there's also he has weird obsessions, and he has been very obsessed with CNN for a long time. And so it makes a lot of, in his sort of brain, you could see how he gets CNN, but doesn't have to get the lawyers that, and that sort of, that institution, which is, harder to go up against. That's my guess.
No, that's a really good point. What's that?
Thank you for having me.
I know. Thank you, Molly, for being here. It's Molly Jong Fast. We appreciate you so much. And Sam and Joy is going to stay with us. Joy, I'm going to quickly go to Asha for a legal question, because Asha Rangappa, brilliant legal scholar, former FBI. You know what, Asha, as a former FBI special agent, I know you would be hunting down the co-conspirators for the Epstein files instead of wasting everybody's damn time on this shit. So, Asha, let's talk about what happened today, though, because Don showed up for his arraignment, entered a plea of not guilty. There'll probably be some type of order set saying you're going to go to trial on such and such date. Here are the deadlines. But a couple of things. One, Abby Lowell's, the Fed seized his cell phone. They took Don's cell phone and said they now have a search warrant for that phone. Your thoughts about that? Because I thought that was very interesting.
I mean, listen, this is so off the rails, just, from the get-go, that it's hard for me to apply standard FBI practice to this, because, the FBI is normally, when it's operating in its normal capacity, is governed by something called the Attorney General Guidelines. And those have really strict rules about the kinds of investigations that you can pursue, what you need to even, start them, and who you can go against. One of the huge protections that those guidelines have is for journalists, because those guidelines came out of, the church hearings in the 1970s. It's all about making sure that there's a buffer for civil liberties. So the fact that they have even, opened an investigation or bringing charges against a journalist and getting a search warrant. I mean, I guess what they would be arguing is that there's evidence of this conspiracy, right? So they are saying that this is a conspiracy. I mean, again, this would be considered a highly intrusive technique. It normally wouldn't be authorized unless it was, a very serious type of investigation. So this is not normal, but that is what they will claim in their search warrant affidavit, or did claim likely that they were going to get. They're trying to see whether he had conversations, that go to him being in cahoots with the people that were there, as opposed to a third party kind of observer.
The conspiracy part. Well, maybe I should bring in now the guy that I want to hope maybe I should have scrubbed my text messages with, and that's Don Lemon. Don, you want to let us know? Should I scrub my text with you? All that shit talking I've been doing, maybe I should have scrubbed those texts. Don, man, look, this is your show, my friend. I have just been keeping the seat warm along with others.
Oh, you're anchoring it.
We are good to see you. We're so happy to see you. Tell us what's going on. How you doing, man?
I'm doing okay, and I'm so grateful that you guys are here. You are anchoring the show, so you take the lead. I'll answer as many questions as possible. I couldn't have asked for a better panel. Hi, before I saw Sam recently, but Asha, I haven't seen you since we worked together.
I know.
It's so great to see you.
So good
Hi,
to see
good
you.
to see you. Thank you for doing this, Sam. I'll just say, I wake up to you in the middle of the night because my YouTube constantly repeats your show.
I'm sorry about that. Of all the things you've been through over the past several weeks, that could be the worst.
Well, I know, but luckily there's you, and then there's Joy, and it just keeps repeating you, Joy, and then me, and then you, Joy, and then me. And I'm like, that's just how I like it. But what I will say is that because it was a little bit herky-jerky there, and there were people speaking over at the podium, and I didn't want to go over there and interrupt them. But also, I just wanted to be clear. I'll talk about this on my show for as much as I can talk about it, but I don't want to fight this in the press. I'm going to fight this in court. And I think that's where the real, that's where the gains and the wins will be made for the First Amendment and for freedom of the press and for journalists, not only in the United States, but I believe around the world. So just again, I'll tell you what I said. I wanted to thank all of my colleagues, the journalists around the world, Lemon Nation, of course, my family and my friends. You guys, you have shown up for me in very real way. And so I feel all of it, and I am grateful for it. And as you know, we've all been doing this for a while. But for 30 years, I've been a journalist, and the power and protection of the First Amendment, I believe, has been the underpinning of my work. The First Amendment is there for a reason. It's first for a reason, freedom of the press, first for a reason, because it's the bedrock of our democracy. I believe without the freedom of the First Amendment of the Constitution, everything else just sort of wobbles and crumbles. And so I think that the events that happened before my arrest and what's happened since, it really shows what this administration, finally, that people are realizing what this administration is all about. And for them, you guys, and you can respond to this, the process is the punishment here. They don't care about the outcome. So like all the people in Minnesota, the great people in Minnesota and around the country, I just want to tell you, and around the world, I'm not going to be intimidated. I'm not going to back down. I'm going to fight these baseless charges, and I'm not going to be silenced. And so I will hand it back to you, Katie Fang, who's masterfully managing this hour.
Well, I actually am grateful that you were able to restate your release or what you wanted to say, because it was kind of hard to hear it when you were coming outside of the courthouse. But number one, Don, everybody's here in support of you and in love. And number two, you did see everybody who showed up outside of that courthouse, Don. They were making it clear, and they were chanting, "Protect free speech." And I respect that you want to fight this in the court of law. You do have an incredible defense team that I've been talking about since I have been hosting in your stead. But Don, I wanted to ask you to give some flavor to the Lemon Nation that's tuning in. Can you let them know what it was like to go in for the arraignment? Like what it was like to go in court?
Yeah. So I showed up, and immediately everyone is out there and they're asking questions, and I want to answer like everyone's questions, but good counsel will tell you, keep your mouth shut, right? But when I walked in, finally when we got in, my attorney Abby Lowell said, "Yeah, you could have said, I'll answer questions on the way out." I'm like, "Yeah, now you say that afterwards." So that was a little a moment of levity there. But people were asking me, about how I felt about going in and what I expected, and I didn't know. But I am grateful to all of the press. I went in. We were in a room that with counsel, sort of a side conference room, and then folks started coming in. The other defendants came in, and everybody was in the same room, and we all said hello to each other. It was very cordial. It was a little bit weird, being there. The last time that I saw these folks, but there was quite a different scene. And for some of the people the defendants who was there, including Nakima, it was the first time that I had met them. So it was the second time that I had seen Nakima. And so as a journalist, people asked me, like, what did you do when you were arrested? And I took mental notes. Well, I was sitting in the courtroom taking notes so that I could remember.
Oh, see, there you go. That's why I was asking you.
Yeah.
See that picture.
Yeah. So I said, the attorney was here. The attorney for Miss Allen was sitting there. Then the clerk courts were over here. There were 3 rows on each side that were filled with people. And then I had the attorney for Beatty, the bearded guy, I said, was there. And then the attorney for Nakima. And I just had, and the government was on this side. So I took a whole thing. So, because I want to remember these things, because I want to chronicle them. But I will tell you what we did in court today, and you guys can speak to it, okay? I'll let you guys talk. So today, this was the first step in exposing, I believe, this administration's failed plan to stifle me and to stifle all journalists around the country. Today, this is what we did. We served the prosecutors with 2 pages of demands for what they claim is evidence. Today, we announced our intention to have the grand jury transcripts released to show the charges are baseless. And then today we made it clear that we're going to move to dismiss the charges as violating the First Amendment. And as I have said, since, Attorney General Pam Bondi and others have been threatening charges, that I'm not going to be intimidated and I'm not going to be silenced. But that's basically what happened in court today. And of course I said, not guilty. And that's it.
Dawn, I did want to follow up with the fact that Attorney General Pam Bondi was asked and was trying to use you and the church service in Minnesota as an example during her testimony before the House Judiciary Committee this week. It's definitely something that they're trying to keep on pushing into the spotlight. Your thoughts about the fact that they're trying to use you as this shining example, you and Georgia as this shining examples of how this is the criminality of political opposition, that you can't just have your opinion or your speech about it. We have to criminalize your conduct because, to your point, the process is the punishment.
Well, criminalize what? Reporting and showing. And let's just say everything that happened in that church is there in large part because I chronicled it, and Georgia Ford as well. We have it on videotape, or not videotape, digitally. It's there for everyone to see what happened. Imagine if we had not been there. Let's just say something, else went wrong or whatever. I think it's better to have this chronicle. So if, that everyone can see exactly with transparency what happened. And that is the role of journalists, which is exactly what I was doing. That was my only mission. So I think if you go back and you look at the tape, just go look at it. It'll show you exactly what I did. It'll show you that I did not go in with the protesters. I entered later. And once it started, that's when I started to talk about what was going on. I was not impeding anyone. I was not intimidating anyone. My conversations with people were very cordial. And they said that I peppered people with questions. That's what reporters do. You don't always like the questions. And so, but I also think that I am, I think that I am a great foe for them because I'm outspoken. The president doesn't like me. I'm Black. I have a platform. I'm gay. All of those things. And I am not afraid of them. I am fearless. And so to them, it's the perfect foil because MAGA hates me because I tell the truth about their cult. Donald Trump hates me because I tell the truth about him. It has nothing to do with me not liking Donald Trump or hating Donald Trump. I don't have any of those things. What I hate are lies. What I am, if someone asked me recently, are you an advocacy journalist? And I said, I'm not an advocacy journalist, but I do advocate, if anything, for the truth. And so they don't like me. And also, let me just say this for those of us who are here now in independent media, they have neutered corporate journalism, corporate media. And so now the people who are closest to the ground without the gatekeepers are people like us.
That's
Are
right.
people like Sam, who, Sam, look, you've been doing this forever. You've been in this, doing it. I don't mean that you're old. We're all both people of the same, but you paved the way for people like us. You showed us that it is possible to be independent, that you don't have to be with a big network. You can tell the truth. You can inform people without corporate influence and without the gatekeepers. And so I think that is also part of their biggest concern. They're trying to shut us down and chill whatever part of the media is left. And I believe that is independent journalism.
Could I ask, I just, because I think your point that the process is the punishment is right on target. I mean, and I think every reason that you ticked off for them to come after you, like, I think it was not a coincidence. Had had anyone else not been there with your profile, I think I don't know that they would have chosen those people to prosecute. But I am curious, and to the extent that you can talk about this, because you obviously have a strategy, and I think like the going after what their transcript in the grand jury, hugely important as a political matter, right? Like, because there's a legal fight and there's a political fight, and you say you don't want to fight this in the press, and I imagine there's reasons beyond. But I imagine there are legal reasons, in terms of your strategy. But I am curious about that, because they want to show that they can put you through this process as the punishment. They're going to lose this case in one form or another, and whether it's on appeal or whatever stage, because it's so ridiculous. But they want to be able to show that they can, bully you, and obviously you're not being bullied. But I'm curious as to like the venue in which you see these fights taking place. How do you make that determination as to like how you're going to push back on it?
Well, I mean, look, I think my attorney, I have great counsel, and I think that they're better at fighting the legal part of it. What I am most concerned about, obviously, personally, and actually for this case and for the country, is winning this case. And the best way to win it is in a courtroom. So when I say that, I don't want to be in a position where I say or do something wrong that jeopardizes. It's not just for me, but for everyone. This is a moment that I think is important, that we have the right outcome for our country, for our democracy. And I don't want to be in a position, especially coming out when everyone's hot and they're asking me all kinds of questions. And I don't want things to get convoluted. And for people to be yelling questions, I want my message to be very clear. So that doesn't mean that I'm not going to appear on a Joy Reid show or on a Sam Cedar show or on anybody's show where it is a more controlled environment, where we can have a better and more informed, and where we inform the public more about what is happening and about our rights, especially as journalists and as Americans. So that's what I mean by that. So am I going to talk about it? Absolutely. But I'm not going to go over every legal detail, because I don't think that that's a smart thing to do.
I would agree as counsel.
Hi, Joy. You're awfully quiet. How are you?
I was going to say, Joy.
Listen,
Joy,
I'm just
chip in.
listening, and I am just so proud to be your friend, Don. We're just also proud of you. I mean, you are a champion for the First Amendment, and you and Georgia were doing exactly what needed to be done. Before you popped on, we were talking about the fact that, and you made the point, I think brilliantly, Don, that had you all not been there, and honestly, I think had you not been there, Georgia is a brilliant journalist. She's a local journalist. What you did is you gave that event national import, and that put the eye of Sauron on you, obviously. But you are the reason that people were able to highlight what that protest was about. It was about an ICE agent who was a lay pastor at that church. That's why they chose that church. And so there's a whole sort of story that journalism tells that you were there to chronicle. And, I was not surprised, but disgusted by Jim Jordan injecting you into a hearing that was supposed to be about the Epstein files not being fully released per a law that Donald Trump himself signed, because he had to. Yeah. And in trying to do anything they could to distract from the Epstein files, he decided to try to turn the whole purpose of that hearing to you. It didn't work because Pam Bondi, what was interesting about her response, I'd love to get your response and also Katie's and also up there the whole panel's. Pam Bondi, in a way, didn't take the bait. Normally, she was taking anything that the right was trying to feed her in order to try to advance Donald Trump's, id in that moment. She was screaming and yelling, trying to perform for Donald Trump. But I was interested in that. In that moment, she actually didn't go there because I think she knows she doesn't have a case. She didn't seem like someone who was confident that she had the goods on you. She sort of backpedaled and said, well, I don't want to talk about an ongoing investigation. She didn't have a problem doing that any other time. So I wonder if you do believe that this is, what percentage of it do you think is performative? Because Donald Trump does hate you. He does hate independent media. And, part of it feels performative that she is constantly delivering pizza on delivery, as Jamie Raskin said about her. She's like the pizza delivery woman. Donald Trump says pizza and she sends it. How much of you do you think it is performative, and how much do you think it is punishment for independent journalism?
Well, I don't know if I have an exact percentage, but I think a large part on both. Because, I mean, look at what they've done over at the State Department, or at the Pentagon, I should say. Look at what they've done there. We're getting journalists to sign and journalism organizations to sign papers saying that we need to approve what information you disseminate. That is unheard of. Look at what they have done. I think you guys probably discussed it earlier with ABC News, George Stephanopoulos and others, making them pay out large sums of money from a lawsuit for lawsuits that are winnable in court for those companies. And so they have been very effectively able to, as I said before, neuter the mainstream media because it's all about the corporation. It's all about profits. And as you know, for those of us who have worked in mainstream media, don't go too hard on this person because we don't want to lose access for the morning show. We need, Good Evening USA to be able to get their interview, or Good Morning USA to be able to get their interview with someone in the administration. If you go too hard, they may, block you out. And so we don't have to do that. So that's what they've been able to do that, because every time someone says something in the mainstream media about Donald Trump and the Epstein files, it's always with a caveat. Now, he has not been haven't been proven that we know that it has not been proven. So you have to give all of that because they're afraid that Donald Trump is going to file some lawsuit that shouldn't go anywhere just because you mentioned his name in connection with the Epstein files. So I think that part is in large part to try to chill the media. Yeah, it's big. Maybe 50-50. But I think the performative part maybe even more, in my estimation. You guys can disagree, because they are playing to an audience of one, maybe two, which is the MAGA base.
Yeah.
And so for the MAGA base and for Donald Trump, someone like me is like a real win. I'm like you're
like the prize deer, like strapped to the hood of the
that's
truck.
what I was going to say, with all of the antlers, right? I'm the prize buck. So
And Don, they have not delivered. Remember, they said they were going to lock Hillary Clinton up, Barack Obama up, all of this long list of people they were going to lock up. They haven't locked any of them up. And so they're like, who can we lock up? Well, he hates Don Lemon. Let's go for Don.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to say goodbye to Sam Cedar and Joy Ann Reed, who have been hanging out with us. Don, go ahead.
Sam, thank you so much.
I wanted to say thank you, Don. Honestly, really impressive the way you're fighting this. Impressive also, frankly, the work you've been doing on the ground. That reporting in and of itself, really important to do. You do great work out in the field. I love it when you're out there. And this is just, all respect to you. Really.
So Sam, I know. Thank you very much. I know you have to go, but look, there were lots of people in the streaming world who weren't so sure about me when I started this, and now I think they realize that I'm really committed to doing the work. This is not performative. I'm not moving right in order to gain some audience that I didn't have. I just believe in the Constitution, and this is my profession, and I love what I do. So thank you. You come on the show. You believe in me, and I hear the things that you say, and Emma. So give Emma my regards as well. Thank you, and you keep up the great work. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Joy.
And Joy, I don't even have to say it.
Look, my
and
friend,
you're killing it.
I told you, we are here for you. Just know that The readers love the Lemon Heads, and they love them some Don Lemon, honey. They love everybody on this panel. So just big ups to you. Big up Katie Fang. Thank you very much. Lil
Love you
Fang,
guys.
which was what I
Joy,
call her.
are you live
Thank
tonight?
y'all.
Are you live tonight?
I am live tonight, so I'm about to go get myself together. I'm actually in Chicago. You can see I'm in this lovely hotel room, so I'm about to go change my clothes into my presentation clothes, and then I'm going to do the show live. We've got Hakeem Jeffries on. We got a lot of people on. We got
Great.
Pramila Jopp. We're going to be talking about you.
Yeah. Thank you.
We
Thank
love
you,
you.
Joy.
Thanks, Joy.
All right.
Love you.
And so at
Thank
6,
you.
you're live at
Bye,
6 o'clock
Joy.
Eastern, right?
We are
Joy?
live at 6 p.m. As soon as
Yeah.
the Lemon Heads are done here, come on over. We always have our Lemon Head friends that are always over. But yes, as soon as Dawn is done here and Katie and Asha and company, we'll be on at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
If we go a little bit over, just let me
Yeah.
know, and I'll send the audience to you. Okay, so just
And
let me know.
come on
okay?
over. Yeah. And if you still
Okay.
feel like talking, you know my number.
Okay.
Call me.
All right.
And come
Okay.
on.
All right.
Bye,
Thank
Joy.
you.
Love
Thank you. Thank you, Joy.
Love you too. We're actually going to bring in Cam Caskey and Akilah Hughes. And while we're doing that, I want to go back to Asha Don because I do want to talk to Asha about this legal question. Look at Akilah, look and Cam. Asha, Harmeet Dillon, the head of the Civil Rights Division, civil rights, we got to put that in quotes because it really doesn't exist in this administration anymore. She says that there's no precedent for prosecution under the subsection of the FACE Act, the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, that Dawn and others are being prosecuted in. She says there's no precedent. They've never used that subsection, which we know to be the case because legislatively, this is not what it was supposed to be used for. Dawn just said a motion to dismiss being filed for violation of First Amendment rights, but is there something to be said about the fact that the Trump administration wants to use Dawn and others as guinea pigs for these federal statutes and these particular subsections?
Well, this particular statute, I can't imagine having like wide applicability, right? I mean, it's already a relatively narrow crime. It is it's a misdemeanor. It's not something, and I think like the bar for them is, again, as Dawn mentioned, there's actually video evidence, that backs up the defense here, because you have to show that the person intentionally, first of all, you have to have the intent requirement, and that they're impeding and obstructing people from engaging in this activity, the worship or whatever in this case. And that's plainly not the case. I mean, you see people going freely, he's interviewing them, etc. So it's just a high bar. I think even in this case, I can't see it being something that's expanded. But I think to the points that were made earlier, this is an easy vehicle to deliver, some raw meat to, I guess it's usually raw meat to the base, but in this case to Donald Trump. I guess a hamburger to Donald Trump. Because he doesn't, he only wants to see the charges. I actually don't think he cares what happens beyond that. And I think that's a part of why, the prosecutors are left holding the bag at the end when they don't secure their indictments, when they don't secure their convictions. The process is the point, but I think the process for Trump is, I can say that my enemies are being investigated or have been charged with a crime.
Yeah, and look.
Okay, can you stand by, Katie, just real quickly, because I want to bring some folks in. I want to bring in Tara Setmeyer and also Monique Presley. They have been patiently waiting in the wings. And Reese Colbert is here. If Reese, we can get Reese back. I'll just do a mega.
I'm handing the baton over to the Monique Dawn dynamic duo.
Okay.
So I'm dipping. So I'll dip, and then Reese can take my little Hollywood Square space, is what she can take.
Thank you, Katie.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Katie. I appreciate it.
Hello, Freak Dawn.
Hi, Monique. How are you?
I'm doing great. I have questions for you, but beforehand, welcome, Tara. What are you thinking? Because we have been going back and forth about this for a great while, and I'm just wondering, from your perspective, who is out there galvanizing advocacy efforts, what has the arrest of a Don Lemon, the arrest of a Georgia Ford, what has that done in the grand scheme of things in terms of motivating people to act?
I can tell you, hi everyone, Don, I'm glad to see that you are free, of course. Yes, good to see you, Asha. I don't know Akilah and Cam, but hi. We're all in this together. Listen, this has been another wake-up call. It's a shot in the arm to the average American of how far this administration is willing to go to violate the Constitution, to try to silence dissenters, they're executing people in the streets. They're kidnapping 5-year-olds off the streets and putting them in these internment camp situations. And now they're literally arresting journalists. It's showing the escalation in what a lot of us warned about during the 2024 election, but people didn't want to listen because they thought these things were too esoteric, or they were hyper, they were hypotheticals. Okay. Well, each time, this is what happens when there's no consequences for the first thing. And then they'll continue to see what they can get away with. They're like, wayward children. And so Don, now being who he is and having the footprint that he has now become the symbol of how far this administration will go to try to silence people. And thankfully, Don, you having the notoriety and the footprint, but also the fortitude to tell them, F you, you're not going to silence me, you're not going to intimidate me, is incredibly inspiring to others, because they wanted to be a chilling effect. They wanted to have a chilling effect. And it did. Their intimidation and bullying of corporate media, of the law firms, of universities, right? They've gone into many sectors where they've tried to take that, the hammer of the federal government and use it to try to, beat people into their will, submit them. But with you, Don, you have been able to, because no one owns you. You are you, and the people are your fuel. You have been able to use this as a way. Now, it's unfortunate that you have to go through this, but you're not alone now, right? With Georgia Fort and others, those who are on this horrible ride with you, unfortunately, but they also benefit from having you there at the top to kind of be the example. And so I think this is rallying people in ways that we really haven't seen before, because if they can do it to someone as high profile as you are, and something that is so ridiculously, obviously not illegal, then it's like, well, who else can they do it to? And it's like, okay, well, then this is why we need to, this is a further emphasis as to why we have got to make sure these people do not stay in power. So I think it's been a rallying point and an example of what happened. And you look at people and the support that Don is getting. You look at the protests, and it's even opened up conversations on the right. Like, you're even seeing people on the right who you probably never would have thought would have been on the same side. But
Tara, go
here,
deeper on that. Because I have been seeing the same thing, and I've wondered how real it was and how big it was, because even people I've seen just in the airport saying, look, I've watched you. I don't agree with a lot of what you say, but this is not what we want, and this isn't right. So I'm sorry this happened to you.
Yes, no, it's because it's a combination of a couple things. It's a combination of exposing Donald Trump and some of his people for the fact that they really don't believe a lot of what they say. So it's about them and their personal power. It's not about the greater principles that our Constitution upholds, which is supposed to apply to everybody, right? Yeah. When Donald Trump and his people started going after Alex Preddy for being a legal gun owner, those Second Amendment people, and Don, that was like, wait, I'm sorry, excuse me, what? I thought it was the left who was coming for our guns, not you. So once they started to see the hypocrisy there, then they start to see, well, wait a minute, none of us are safe. They were only supposed to go after the snowflake liberals that we don't like. It wasn't supposed to boomerang back on us too. We're the ones who support you. And so it's beginning to open up. This is kind of how people get out of cults, when they start to see the hypocrisy come back on them. And so you have the Second Amendment issue, you have the billionaire elites issue, where Donald Trump is sure as hell enriching himself, but people, the farmers in Iowa and the folks who are on food stamps, or the folks who are losing their health care in Marjorie Taylor Greene's district, they're waking up to going, wait a minute, you're palling around with the billionaires and I'm still suffering. That's not what you said. You said you were going to drain the swamp. And the same thing here with you, with First Amendment. Well, we want to be able to say horrible things on Twitter and call people whatever we want. So if they're going after you, then that means that are they going to come for me if I'm not sufficiently loyal enough? So there's a lot of layers here to what's happening to you, Don. It's not just this one thing. I think it's another inflection point here in this fight.
If I may, Monique, can I ask one more question? I know this is my show, but it's Monique's show. Cam, let's talk about the young folks, because to me, I find it particularly, it resonates to the young demographics, young folks, and all different ethnicities. There is an audience that has, I guess, I have gained since this happened from the young folks that I don't. Who wouldn't know me because I happen to be someone on cable news.
Well, first of all, Don, I'm so glad you're doing all right. I was shocked when the president, who ran on smiting his personal enemies and racism, targeted a Black journalist who makes him really, really angry. But I guess the president is always capable of surprising us. Don, I think a lot of young people right now are looking for voices who are going to challenge the powers that be, because they look to the mainstream media and they see a lot of individuals who are actually curtailing towards Trump. And they might seem like they aren't. They might occasionally ask a tough question about the administration or anything, but they're not doing anything challenging to this administration in a substantive way. It's controlled opposition in the mainstream media. And a lot of young people are seeing right through it. And if you don't believe me, I hate to sound like Mr. Trump, go look at the ratings. But the truth is, young people right now are so exhausted by all of these individuals who are simply serving the status quo, even if they are positioning themselves as though they are some sort of bold voice, that when an individual like yourself has the audacity to actually go and walk the walk, young people who otherwise might not have been engaged are going to say, wait, somebody is doing something right now. Somebody has the audacity to provide a voice to individuals who need to be heard. What a concept.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Cam. Asha, I understand you have to go. Thank you, Asha. I appreciate it. You're muted right now, but thank you. I appreciate it. I'm so glad to see you, and thanks for your support. You be well, okay?
Thank you. Don, can I just say something really quickly about that? Because we're
Yeah.
seeing this about people feeling galvanized and, non-political people being activated now. You're seeing this all over the place. And I think this is going to be reflective in why you're starting to see some of these fights, these primary fights going into the midterms. Who are people going to elect to be a fighter for them? It's not even about policy anymore. It's about who's going to stand up in these moments for me and you. And so I think that, you saw that in however you feel. I'm not talking policy, like what happened in New York City with Mamdani, what you're seeing with some of the polling about people feeling like the traditional ways of doing things aren't working. But we just want someone to fight for us. You're seeing this in the Texas primary, right? These are the conversations around Jasmine Crockett versus Tallarico. Who's the fighter? Who do you think that's going to be, right? I personally think it's Jasmine Crockett. James Tallarico doesn't, if I had to choose a fight, I'm choosing Jasmine Crockett. Not the person that's going to play it safe or the person who is going by the old rules. We're not playing a game here that is of the old rules. We're playing a whole new different set of rules here in a different game. And I think you're looking at lots of voters who are as the midterm elections start to shape up, who is going to stand in the breach and fight for me and for our rights and fight against what this administration is doing to everyday Americans every day. It's going to be a very definitive portion of this of the midterm elections. And who gets
Akila,
elected.
you've been standing by very patiently.
Well,
Thank
I
you
mean,
for
I guess
being here.
what. Of course. Thank you for having me. And hello, everyone. I want to say, I'm really happy that you're doing well, just as everyone else has said. The thing that's really struck me in all of this is that the Minnesota narrative for Donald Trump has completely fallen apart. He thought that this was going to be this show of force from his administration, that the people there were going to stand down, that journalists would be too afraid to cover it, that, the headlines would read, this is an amazing triumph and they're getting all of the criminals out and all of this. And every single piece of that has fallen apart. And the latest piece of that is, there is no backlash to Don Lemon after this arrest and these charges. And in fact, most people believe they're bogus. And that's not just anecdotal, there have been polling about it, but the right has prided itself for the better half of the past 2 decades as the free speech party. They've had, they've said that the left is PC, then it was woke, then it was policing language, all of this stuff. And when, the rubber hits the road and we're looking at the brass tacks, we have an administration that has tried to stifle protest, that has tried to stifle the press, that has tried to, infringe upon people's religious beliefs if they're not Christian. Across the board, we're seeing this sort of erosion. And I think that Donald Trump has completely lost the plot. And people are tired of it. It's very obvious in the latest polling. He's underwater in pretty much every poll about what's happening in Minnesota, what's happening with ICE, what's happening with his administration, what's happening with the economy, even what's happening with the Epstein files. And so, if it's of any consolation, this is just the latest attempt for him to sort of, ignite that culture war that he won on. But people are waking up. And so I do think that across generations, people who maybe walked into the last election in 2024 and thought, you know what, the economy's not doing so hot, I'll go back to the guy we had before this. That's not a good enough reason anymore. And I think that this is worse than those people could imagine. I think they have a really small imagination anyway, but that's just me. But generally speaking, I think it's hard to argue in favor of what's happening right now. And when journalists start to be targeted, that is a very clear turn into authoritarianism, into a dictatorship. And so I think that this is a real inflection point, and I'm happy to see that the tide has turned so far from Donald Trump.
Thank you all. I appreciate it. It's good to see you, Cam. You too, Tara. You guys all know how I feel about you. And Akilah, thank you. Akila's become a great friend to the show. And I hope that we have met in person before, but it's been a while.
I met you at the airport.
Oh my gosh.
And I pretended to think you were TJ Holmes again.
Oh my gosh, how hilarious. I forgot about that. But it's all coming back. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys soon. So Monique is staying. Monique, this is your hour. Sorry, that kind of took over a little bit, but let's bring it in, and I'll turn it back over to Monique. But I want to bring in now Abdul El Sayed, who is here, and he is a Senate candidate in Michigan. We're grateful for his voice and for him being here. Senate candidate, he's sorry, I was just reading something from my producers. Thank you for joining us. Also, joining us right now is Karen Finney, who one of my former colleagues and great friend, great political mind, joining us as well. It's so good to see both of you. Abdul El Sayed, how are you doing? Thank you for joining.
I should be asking the same question, my friend. How are you doing? I think you've had a harrowing experience, and we're grateful to see that justice is being done here, and you're forcing a conversation in America about just how far one man can go to shut down the foundational premises of the Constitution. So it's you and the Constitution versus Donald Trump. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing okay. I'm hungry. and I'm sitting around.
Someone get this man some food.
With counsel, and they're all eating burgers and pizza and shrimp and whatever, and I'm not a part of it. except for Abby, who's eating a salad. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But listening very intently to make sure that I don't say anything that I shouldn't say. He's making sure that I'm a good client. But thank you. I'm doing okay. To be honest with you, every time it's a learning experience for me. I was telling the folks earlier, Abdul, that I was just sort of taking notes as a journalist in the courtroom. I'm not used to being on this side. Usually I'm sitting in the bench in the back, writing down things because they don't like you to bring devices into most courtrooms. But just sitting there and having at times when I'm addressing the judge, my back to the journalists who are sitting in the back is just a weird position to be in. But I think each time this happens, I get a bit more confident about what's going on. And it's also great to be in the hands of really, really good counsel. And that's important. Yeah. So thank
that's
you
a blessing.
for asking
And
that.
I'll tell you, having watched the whole ordeal and been to Minnesota, in fact, you and I were on the ground right around the same time. They say to a journalist, don't become the story. You just got to write the story. But when writing the story then turns you into the story, you've got trouble, right? And I think about all that we have lost. And for me, it's hard because you don't you go about your day to day. Obviously, my day to day is a little bit different. I run around my state trying to win a Senate race, but you go about your day to day. You wake up in the morning, you go to work, you hug your kids, you make your dinner, you watch what's happening on TV. But like, there are low water marks that tell you that the font of democracy is receding. And I think the experience that you had is one of those moments where all of us need to step back and ask, just how far have we gotten? And when is it that we all recognize that within all the peaceful means that we can, including telling the story, that all of us need to stand up for the rights that we need, deserve, and are our birthright as Americans? So I'm sorry that you had to be the front end of it, but also the fact that you were tells us a lot about just how far we've gone and just how much effort it will take to rectify this.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. But I can't lie to you guys. It's not easy. I say get a bit more confident, right? With every procedure, you just learn a bit more. So maybe it's a good way to look at it is that it's a learning experience, and I try not to think about all of the folks who are saying, well, this is, you represent the First Amendment and all that. We'll see what happens in this, because I wouldn't put anything past this administration. Am I wrong in thinking that? Monique or Akilah, you guys?
Well, Dawn, that was actually what I wanted to ask you. I'm glad we're both here at the same time, because I know that you've covered a lot of criminal cases, and that you and I have had the opportunity over the years to talk about a lot of criminal cases. You were
Karen's back. Thank you, Karen. I was going to come to you, but then I went to Monique. Sorry. So go ahead, Monique. Sorry to interrupt.
You're having this experience now, unjustifiably, as a criminal defendant, and even having great counsel and having resources. I was just wanting to hear from you what that experience has been like for your humanity, because I know that they try to inconvenience you in the process, but they also try to humiliate you. They want you not proud. They want you not standing up saying you're going to continue doing your job. And especially as a Black man in America, I'm just wondering how that has left you feeling thus far.
Well, Monique, what it's really done is sort of made me recommit to what I do and to continue to be the best journalist, enlightening, factual point of view, whatever it may take to bring the information unfiltered to the American public and to the world. Now, how it has changed me? Well, Monique, everyone thinks like, oh, he's a guy on CNN and he has this profile or whatever, and they may think that I'm snooty and stuck up. And Monique said to me the other day, you are just too regular, because I don't carry myself like a celebrity, because I don't believe I'm a celebrity. I am a journalist. And so I like to be with the people. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, closer to the ground, unfiltered, unbought, and unbothered. Okay. So how has it changed me? It made me even more aware, not that I wasn't aware before, and committed to serving people and being a voice for people who don't have as much agency as I have, who don't have a platform to be able to speak out, who don't know the people. Look at this group that we were able to assemble. These folks are here because of me, and in large part also because of their commitment to the First Amendment and to the freedom of the press as well, and to democracy. So I've just been recommitted to that. And so, I always say, and Tim, my husband, hates it when I say, I treat everybody the same, whether it's, cleaning lady to the president. And not that there's anything wrong with being a cleaning lady, because lots of our parents and grandparents put us through school, being a cleaning lady, a teacher, and whatever job they could get at the time. So there's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm saying is that I don't put on airs or treat anybody any differently because of their station or standing in the world. And I'm more committed to that. And it makes me even more aware of the injustices in society. And I'm going to fight against that through my work.
Right. It takes away some of your innocence, though, I think, especially for someone like you who's been in in the public light for as long as you have. You've had a good run walking down the street by yourself eating potato chips, friend. We might be we might be near the end of that run though.
I know. I ducked out from my security. I was in DC, Karen. I was in DC the other day, and I ducked out from the security, and I was walking down the street trying to get to my car, eating potato chips, and Monique was like, "Are you crazy?"
Oh no! Lord
I'm like, you're
glad I
regular,
didn't
but
see
you
that.
can't get regular anymore. Karen Finney,
Yes.
welcome. Please share your thoughts on just
Ooh.
where are we, Karen?
Ooh, girl, I ask myself that every morning. After I look at the phone, I think, where did I wake up? Did I take the blue pill or the red pill? And can I do something else? Look, I think something Don just said is really important, and I just wrote about it on Substack, that it's about agency. And again, this idea that, you were there doing your job. And think about in this moment, just frankly, as Alex Preddy and Renee Good were there to bear witness to what was happening. We do that in my neighborhood. If we hear whistles or something, to go out with your phone and right. That obviously that is in the Constitution, that it was set up very intentionally so that there would be some accountability to power. But in this regime of Donald Trump, think about how critical it is that you were there, that people are there to bear witness. Because if you weren't, we would be relying on what they're telling us. It would be he said, she said. Think about that for a minute. We wouldn't know what really happened. We wouldn't be able to judge for ourselves. And it's been so important to have you there, to have people there willing to bear witness and serve in that function. And frankly, that's how it's supposed to work. That's one of the things that has struck me, Don, of just, in the clips that I was watching, it's like, he's doing his job. He's talking to everybody. This is ridiculous. But I will say I had a moment of thought like, these people don't know who they're messing with. This is you don't want to mess with Don Lemon because he don't play. And I think it's important because as a person who has been your colleague, it's when you were at CNN, I know you tell the truth. I know how you treat people. I know how you value the importance of the platforms that you have and the ability to tell stories and to shed light. And the question I have for you, I'm sort of adjacent to this in that some folks know this, some may not. So Tish James is my cousin. And when she was indicted, she's strong. She, like you said, good legal representation. And she was very focused on, I'm going to do my job. I'm going to let my legal team do their job. But behind the scenes, there was also our family, the house that these two homes that they were talking about, right? There were people who live there. One of our cousins who has small children, they've been impacted. And sometimes we forget that it's not just the person, it's the people who love that person. And so my question to you, Don, is just how's your family doing with all this? Because it's sometimes, we sort of can say, well, I put myself out there, but they don't necessarily.
Yeah, that is a very good question. My family is doing okay. We were texting before the hearing, and we were making jokes, trying to at least ease some of the seriousness or whatever. And I guess they didn't want me to be as concerned going in, and they were my nieces, who were amazing, were making jokes with me. And then they said, we're just kidding, Uncle Don, we love you and we know that you got this, right? So it's hard if you're ever in a position like this. I'm used to dealing with public, with publicity and all of those things. It doesn't make it any easier, but the tough part is having people who are not.
Right.
And who don't deserve the attention and all of the negativity that comes along with it, and all of the comments and all of the threats and all of those. So, so when this first happened, I told my counsel, and as we call it, the war room, like, I'm not so worried about myself. I'm just worried about my loved ones. So Karen, that is a very good, and how they're affected by it, because they don't deserve this. I don't deserve it either, but even more so, they don't deserve it. So thank you for that, Karen. I really appreciate it. Can I bring in some folks? Mike Nellis is here. Mike Nellis and I do a Substack together. He still has not figured out what we're going to name the program. He is a Democratic strategist and a former advisor to Vice President Kamala Harris. Harry Sisson is here. And Harry is, of course, a political commentator and like one of the biggest streamers in the world. Very popular.
Very kind.
Thank you guys for joining. How you doing, Mike Nellis? I just saw you the other day, gave the speech, and here we are again.
Yeah, finally met you in person.
Fine. Oh, that's right. That's right.
I feel like we've been doing a show for a week. I'd never met you in person. You were taller than I thought you were.
Really?
No.
You were shorter than
Say
I
it
thought.
again. Say it again.
Oh, people I meet, you lived up to the hype in person.
It was great to meet you too, Mike.
I know. I was just going to say, Monique, I got to meet you too. Hi.
So as you as the day has unfolded, Mike, I'm not sure if you've seen anything what happened. I'm just wondering what your comments are.
So I have seen very little today. I had it's a weird thing to say on a live stream. I had a colonoscopy this morning, so I was out for quite a while. And then
how are you?
So did I.
Lay down, man. Lay down.
And then I got a text from
Hopefully,
Nikki.
both of you are not guilty.
There you go. I think I was still feeling the propofol when Nikki asked me to join. I looked down at my schedule and I was like, oh, I got to join this live stream. How'd you plead, Don? Are you not guilty?
Of course. I'm going to get off you. I'm going to go to Harry Sisson. Because Harry, I was just talking to Cam Caskey a minute ago about the young folks who have now somehow become fans of Don Lemon. Not that they weren't before, but I mean now in droves. And why is it? Are they sick of like old media and they're like finally someone standing up? Like what's up with that?
Well, Don, I'd like to first of all start by saying I've been a young fan of you for a very long time. I feel like I led the charge in getting. No, I'm just joking. No, I think, and it's specifically about you, Don. I've talked to my non-political friends who are my age, they're in college and whatnot, and you're one of the few stories they're actually paying attention to, like Trump trying to arrest you, Trump indicting you, and everything like that, and they feel really moved. And I think it's because it's breaking through into a cultural realm. It's not just staying in the political bubble. Like, if you're watching football, you're going to the bars on the weekend. These are folks who are paying attention to this story as well. But also you are a fighter. People appreciate strength. They don't like weakness, and they see that you're out there speaking truth to power, talking about the importance of the First Amendment, which I think everybody can agree upon, and it resonates. And so, you're a fighter, you're doing your thing. You are still out there, being a voice for people who maybe their voices aren't so loud right now. And a lot of people appreciate that, myself included.
Thank you, Harry. Abdul El Sayed, I understand that you've got a minute to go. Parting words?
Well, look, I'm grateful that you're fighting this fight on all behalf, but all of us have to fight the fight. And I think for folks who are watching right now, it's important to remember that the ability to speak truth, whether to pain or to power or just about the situation, that's at risk. And I think we shouldn't take that lightly, and we have a responsibility to always show up and fight for that. So grateful for that you're doing your part, all the folks here doing their part, and honored to get to join you today and to say, keep up the good fight.
Thank you so much, and best of luck to you. You keep up the good fight as well. We'll see you soon. Akilah?
Yeah. I mean, I think that what everyone else is saying is absolutely correct. Like, this story is breaking through, and like, hate to refer to you as a story on your own show, but the story is breaking through.
I've been called worse, Akilah.
Yeah, honestly, pretty nice words from Akilah Hughes. But I think that people are paying attention now because I think for a long time, this was hypothetical. That was something that we sort of touched on earlier, is like, of course, people said there's going to come a time when journalists are going to be arrested. Like, this administration is incredibly petty. This is a man who came into office with 34 felonies, saw not, a day in jail, and had a list of people he was angry at. Honestly, they were probably waiting in the wings for anything, which is why it's ridiculous that they're charging you with something that has never been tried anyway. This is I keep saying an inflection point, so sorry to be a little cliche, but I do think that like everyone has woken up. Nobody's life has materially gotten better since Donald Trump came back into office, except for maybe Donald Trump's. And even that, I mean, his hand looks messed up. So there's no telling if he's actually doing better. His pockets may be fatter, but so is he. And so I just feel that like there's a moment in American history, you know, for it to be the 250th anniversary feels pointed, because I do think that, you know, this is an administration that wants to test the Constitution. They're already talking about trying to repeal amendments. You know, to have the Constitution be so front and center in the 250th year, but also like for a Black man to be at the center of a conversation about the very first amendment, I think is in ways poetic. So that gives me a little bit of hope. There's still art in the world, but I do think that, like, generally speaking, people want to see this wrapped up. They want, you know, these charges to be dismissed. They want to move forward. I think the Trump administration knows that they have an abject failure in Minnesota, and they're really going back to the drawing board for how they're going to try to proceed with DHS. And so I think, you know, all of this is just an affront to the American people. It's a real stain on the legacy of Trump, although I think he's just a stain on the legacy of the country. And so I'm hopeful that the judge is pretty quick and justice is served quickly, and you can get back to just kikiing with your friends on your show.
Like Karen, thank you, Akil. I appreciate it. I understand that you have to run too. So thank you. Thank you so much. Karen, you know, who was it that mentioned? It was Tara Setmeyer who mentioned what's happening, she believes, out in the world, including among Republicans and all those things. But you're in Washington, right? You are in those circles. I wonder, and she's saying that it made a difference. It may have given some people some inspiration somewhere. What about in DC? I wonder politicians, because a number of politicians have been more willing to come on and more willing to share their opinion about what is happening after what happened to me. For some reason, to them, this was a bridge too far. And I'm wondering how much of that you believe is happening in DC.
You know, Don, it's a great question. And I completely agree. I mean, we are seeing, just think about in the last couple of days also, where we've seen more Republicans, not enough, but more actually willing to say some things and do some things publicly that for the first year they would only say privately. And I'm not just talking about like the Thomas Masseys of the world, but the reaction when it happened, aside from the like, wait, what just happened? You know, it was like, oh, wait, what? Because as you remember, Don, in the first Trump term, we were afraid something like this would happen. I mean, that was a concern. I think there were people around him who were able to contain him a little bit more. This time, they know the marching orders are very clear. Go after them, get them, no matter what. And I do think, particularly happening in the context of what was happening in Minneapolis. Again, you were there to bear witness, which is the job of the press, to be able to say to people, here's what's happening. Here's what I see. I've talked to these people, and let people make their own minds up about what's happening. Republicans, absolutely, we were hearing, certainly, unfortunately, a little bit more privately, that this felt like it was too much. But the important thing, Don, I want to name here is that the White House heard from people, because you know, one of the dynamics we've seen is there was a period where Republicans would say things behind the scenes or off the record that they would never say publicly.
Don't we know, for all of us who went through 2016, right? Yeah.
Oh, child, don't even get me started. You know. And then we started to see some people say things publicly, you know, in the frame of, well, maybe, you know, they were still giving it caveats. But when this happened, it was so clear. And I think that's part of why this has taken people by just really shaken them up. It's easy to understand. You were there doing your job. They're arresting you. That's not the Constitution, right? I mean, I think it's easier, and that's part of why people are following it, is because they want to see what happens. They want to see, does our government, does our government mean anything anymore? Does that Constitution? So I'll just close by saying, yes, part of what I was hearing is that you had Republicans actually saying to the White House privately, but at least they were making those calls, this is too much. You got to ease up. And it's, so which obviously I'm grateful for. And look, Don, there's still people here in Washington who think this is too far and this is outrageous. We're very concerned about what happens in this case. And I think that's the other reason people are paying attention, because Republicans here in Washington understand if this, goes a different way other than being dismissed, what message does that send to Donald Trump, and what does that mean for the Constitution? And so I think that's I agree with what Tara said. I think that's part of why they're paying attention.
Mike, and then Harry. Mike, this is your business. That's what you do, is consult politically. And if you were giving some sort of advice or consultation to, let's say, Democrats or Republicans in this moment where, not just for me, but look at what happened with the Congress people, the grand jury refusing to indict them. They wanted to put them in prison for telling the truth, something that service members hear every single day, something that Pete Hegseth has said before, something that is written in the military code of conduct. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, I remind my clients all the time when they get a little squeamish that pretty soon everybody's going to be against everything that's happened here, whether it's ICE, the abuses of power, the economy. The trajectory here for Trump is pretty clear. He is deeply unpopular. He's acting more and more erratic. He's surrounded himself by sycophants who are completely unqualified. I don't know if you saw, apparently the attorney that's in charge of trying to get the 6 Democrats indicted for the sedition video, quote unquote, is like a former hairdresser that used to work for Jeanine Pirro 20 years ago. It's not like anybody who understands how to prosecute cases like this, which is why they failed in front of the grand jury. So it's ridiculous. So I would tell my clients, get out in front of it now. There's no benefit to keeping yourself quiet right now. And the other thing about the administration, which is why I appreciate that you're fighting back and using it as a moment to expose them, is my son has this book. It's called Give a Mouse a Cookie. Give a mouse a cookie. They're going to want a glass of milk. They're going to want a blanket. They're going to want to take a nap, et cetera, et cetera. That's what this administration is like. Look at the major networks, the corporate media, look at the law firms, look at anybody that is acquiesced to this administration in any way. The minute they're done, they ask them for more. So Don, if you were to go, all right, I'm going to make a plea deal with you for X, Y, and Z, whatever that would look like, then they're going to come after you for something else. Or they're going to come after somebody that doesn't have as much fame and notoriety as you do, and they're going to go 10 times harder at that person. So every moment, I hate to use the term, I forget who said inflection point earlier, which to me is an old trigger word, because Kamala Harris would say that in her stump speech every single time, which I've heard 1,000 times in her Senate campaign. But it is an inflection moment. So every time this happens, you've got to stick your flag and then you got to plant your feet and go, no. And these guys, they can't take a punch either. When you hit them and when you win, they're bullies. They run away. They scatter to the next thing. So when this case gets thrown out, they're going to be embarrassed. They're going to declare victory, or they're going to blame the judicial system, but they'll move on to the next stupid thing that they're going to do.
Harry, I wouldn't say that you're part of the manosphere, but you are very connected, and they love you. That's
Harry is the manosphere. What are you talking about?
Whoa. But the manosphere has been so far not so in line with what they were in line with, in November of 2024. So the question is, what does something like this do to the manosphere? They're now speaking out saying, well, he's, we don't know what he's doing. This isn't what he promised. He's not following the Constitution. And now they're all, running away from him. But I wonder how long that's going to stick, and if this matters to them as well.
I actually do think it's going to stick, not just for 2026, but also 2028. Let's be honest about what happened. Donald Trump lied to these young men, lied to young men across the United States. He said, I'm going to lower your housing costs. I'm going to make things more affordable. I'm going to make the American dream a reality. And these young men bought into it because, Trump was on their favorite podcast. He was talking to their favorite comedians and Twitch streamers and things like that. And now nothing has changed. Matter of fact, I think somebody made this point earlier. Things have only gotten worse. There are no more opportunities. I would argue less opportunities now for young men than there were in 2024 under Joe Biden. So people feel betrayed, and you're seeing that in all these comedians who are kind of connecting with their audiences on this, being in line with their audiences on this. They're calling out Epstein, they're calling out the economy, whatever it might be. And on specifically something like this, one of the main promises that Donald Trump made in his 2024 campaign is, I love freedom of speech. I love it. The liberals, they're trying to cancel everybody. They're woke. I care about the Constitution. And he's completely flipped on that. And this is not lost on people. They are watching a journalist who is documenting something being arrested by this administration, and the administration is standing by it. They're not like, we take it back, we made a mistake, let's walk it back. They're standing by it. And I don't think young men, and specifically the young men I've talked to, both Democrat and Republican, are going to stand by and watch and vote for it again.
Don, can I add something to Harry too, real quick?
Yeah, yes.
When you listen to these, because I track a lot of these manosphere shows like the Rogans and Tim Dillons and stuff, they're turning on Trump on Epstein, and I think part of it
Can you hold on with that, Andy? If you can get me that Joe Rogan saw it from, I think it was in yesterday. I didn't read it from the 5 o'clock show from yesterday. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Do you want me to go,
Mike? No. I'm just trying to bolster what you're saying. Go ahead.
So we know Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem sent the torture video to Epstein. This is in 2009. So Epstein was saying that. Where are you? Are you okay? I love the torture video.
Jeez.
I am in China. I'll be in the U.S. second week of May. What the fuck, man? And why is his name redacted? Why would your name be redacted if you're not a victim? Like, this is what's crazy about all this. Like, how come you redact some people and you don't redact other people? Like, what is this? This is not good. None of this is good for this administration. It looks fucking terrible. It looks terrible. It looks terrible for Trump when he was saying that none of this was real. This is all a hoax. This is not a hoax. Like, did you not know? Maybe he didn't know, if you want to be charitable. But this is definitely not a hoax. And if you got redacted people's names and these people aren't victims, you're not protecting the victim. So what are you doing?
Right.
And how come all this shit is not released?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah,
there you go.
When you listen to them, I think part of the reason they're mad is both the cover up, but also nobody's being prosecuted. So when you connect it to your case, look how quickly they moved to come after you with such bullshit. They went in front of 3 judges that threw the case out. Then they go in front of a grand jury and they managed to weasel their way through it. They're going after Democratic members of Congress. They're going after a guy who threw a sandwich at a cop. Like, it's all really stupid, but they won't go after people who raped little kids and trafficked little kids. And then they lie about it. And then you see stuff like Howard Lutnick saying he didn't know anything. And then all you find out, he took his family to Epstein Island with his kids, which to me is unbelievable to take him to the island of a registered sex offender. But you do you, billionaire class, I guess. But it's just, that's the stuff that pisses me off, because what should the DOJ and the FBI and the rest of them be doing? They should be prosecuting criminals. They should be keeping us safe, and they're not doing any of that. Instead, they're going after you.
Thank you for that, Mike. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Karen. We appreciate it. You guys, it means the world to me. So be in touch, okay? Don't be a stranger.
I'm going to say one
Thank
thing.
you, Don.
Yeah.
Just, Don, I love you. Stay strong. You, as you can see, you have a universe behind you. We have your back no matter what, and just keep fighting and know that you are supported.
Yeah. Don't let the bastards grind you down.
Damn right.
Thank you both. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I'll see you all very soon. Monique is here with me. And if you can, guys, if you can get those headlines up that I did, I want to bring in Charles Coleman as we do that. Charles Coleman is an MS Now legal analyst and a former prosecutor and a civil rights attorney. So thank you for joining us. This is our attorneys. Bring in the lawyers right now. But just, we were on, Andy, do you have those headlines for me or no? Let me know if you do. If you okay.
Yeah, it's up.
Okay, so they were just talking about that. This is the thing. Norway's former PM charged with gross corruption over Epstein links. So there are people in the government in other countries who are being prosecuted, and they are paying the price for the Epstein files, but not in this country, and with a president who is mentioned in the files and who have a longer term association with Jeffrey Epstein than some of these people who are now suffering the consequences. Can you guys make that make sense?
Don, first of all, good afternoon. It's good to see you, my friend, and it's good to see you. Monique. I caught you yesterday briefly on social media talking about, it was either yesterday or the day before yesterday, talking about having to turn away from the Pam Bondi congressional hearing.
Yeah.
And I think if ever there was a moment that sort of brings to bear the significance of the relationship that we have witnessed between the administration and the Department of Justice, It's the conversation we are having around Epstein, because we've been talking about what to anticipate if these files were ever released, and there are still documents to be released, but we've literally seen millions of documents released already. But the context that this has to be processed through is with the relationship that this administration has had with the current Department of Justice and the Attorney General. It has been anything but objective. It has been anything but impartial. And so when you ask how it is and why it is that we're not seeing the same effect of other nations who are going after alleged wrongdoers, it is in large part due to the fact that this administration is pulling the puppet strings on the Attorney General and the Department of Justice. And so when you see that level of contempt, the level of disregard that the Attorney General displayed toward congressional members during a congressional hearing, you can rest assured that that is, as you already talked about, playing to an audience of one for that approval. And so any prosecution which does or does not result, including yours, sir, has a lot to do with where this administration wants the DOJ to place its emphasis. And we have been seeing this DOJ operate in a very partial, very loyal way to the administration, which is the exact opposite of what they are supposed to do.
Yeah, quickly go on, because I want to move on to some legal stuff so that you guys can respond to it.
Okay, so two things. Nadler and Crockett, to me, were masterful in pointing out exactly what the question you were asking, Don. Nadler was pointing out how many other investigations this administration has been willing to deal with repeatedly with the Attorney General, State Attorney General Tish James, whether it's Comey, anybody on the enemies list. And Congresswoman Crockett actually named the prosecution now, the persecution and prosecution against you and against Georgia Fort. And that really is where Bondi lost it. And you're not going to tell me and trying to overtalk them, because he has no real leg to stand on. She's the one who insisted upon having the binders. She's going to release the files, et cetera, and so on. And so she backed herself into her own corner where this is concerned. And while other places around the world are doing something about it, our administration is not. But to Charles's point, it really shouldn't even take the release of the files for something to happen. I mean, they always knew what was in the files. Like, from the time that we gained access to them, the Department of Justice had the responsibility to go through them and to charge whomever still could be charged after proper investigation. And I think if we weren't under this administration, that's exactly what would have been happening. I have never trusted this release to this DOJ, not just because they won't do the right thing, but because they don't know how to do anything correctly or properly. It doesn't surprise me that they're redacting names that they shouldn't and that they are unredacting names that they shouldn't. And it's not always intentional, it's incompetence. It's their complete lack of the staffing, the know-how, the institutional knowledge, the career DOJ professionals to get it done right. And so frankly, everyone is risk under this particular regime.
Okay, stand by. We're going to change the plans a little bit, guys. I want to bring in now James Carville, the legendary Democratic political strategist, and also bring in Glenn Kirshner, the former prosecutor, and he's the host of the Justice Matters with Glenn Kirshner podcast. So everyone, and Jolly Good Ginger is here as well. But I want to focus now, because I know his time is short with us, perhaps, and that's Mr. Carville. Are you down in New Orleans, James Carville?
No, sir. I'm roughing it out at the Beverly Hills Hotel in Beverly Hills, California. The populous James Carville is amongst the people eating $60 hamburgers.
Well, and going to the Polo Lounge. By the way, Beverly Hills was a scene. That was a scene of where this all started. Well, it didn't all start for me, but that got me into this court situation now, Mr. Carville. How are you doing? And what do you think? Today was my
Mr.
first
Carville's
birthday.
in the cemetery in Baton Rouge. You've been there since 1973. But
All right,
James is
James.
appearing on your
All
show.
right, James. All right, James. So today
Go ahead,
was my
Don.
first court date, and I just want to know what you think. Not guilty, I pleaded, of course, but we are in trouble with this administration who they're trying to prosecute political rivals here.
Well, of course they are. I got to tell you, you're a Baton Rouge guy, and tell Mama hello for me.
I will.
Okay. And I think what you did, it was a real flashpoint. And it was a reminder. Sometimes, somebody's got to take the bullet, and you took it. And, it's something amazing. I've been arrested once. I was in the Marines. It's a typical Tijuana ballroom fight shit. Okay. But anytime that you lose freedom, it's really striking. It's a traumatic experience. I mean, although you were arrested for nothing, but they did restrict your freedom at one point, and that's very unpleasant, to say the least.
Yeah, to say the least. And James, I thought about something that is very relatable to the whole country, but especially in the South. Because the Civil War and all of that, and plantations. But I thought about being handcuffed, right? And it was very relatable to, what has happened to. This is not just about political rivals, but what's happened to Black people, especially Black men over the years. And it took me back sort of to enslaved people. And I thought about, those sort of injustices, but that's where my mind went as a Black man from the South.
It should. I mean, if you go 50 miles south of Baton Rouge, 30 miles north of New Orleans, you go to Whitney Plantation. And everybody should go see that. And people forget that they had these patrols, and when the biggest slave revolt was right there in St. John Parish, and we have to be reminded of history. One of the things that people say, they name stuff after Trump. I think that we ought to name something prominent after Trump. And why do I say that? Because people have to remember what happened. You cannot erase this from the American conscience. We can't act like this never happened. I think it's important that it's in your face for the rest of the time this country exists. I really mean that.
Mm-hmm.
I really mean that. And, when you go to Berlin, they don't try to erase their history. They don't glorify it. And we shouldn't erase our history either. Not at all. People should be reminded. And you were in Minneapolis, and you were doing something, and it had something to do with the fact you were Black. That enhanced. I don't have any doubt about that. I don't think anybody else does.
Yeah, well, the journalists that they arrested were Black. The majority of the people that they arrested, who were in court with me today, were Black. There was one white guy. Yeah.
Of course. Is anybody surprised?
Yeah. Who Jolly knows. Jolly, right? He's what's the farmer? What do you call him?
He goes by the woke farmer on social
farmer,
media.
the woke
William
farmer
Kelly.
On social media. So Jolly, stand by. We're going to get to that. But also, Glenn, let's talk about some of the things as a prosecutor. When I was talking about how it feels and what's baked into the criminal justice system. And James says he does believe that it had not everything to do with race, but something to do with it. I don't know if you agree with that as a former prosecutor.
Race is a matter of fact when it comes to the criminal justice system. It's a matter of fact in policing. It's a matter of fact in court. It's a matter of fact in our confinement facilities around the country, and we can't run away from it. When I was trying cases in D.C., I was a prosecutor for 30 years, never left the courtroom, never wanted to be a bureaucrat or a muckety-muck of the Department of Justice. I remained in the courtroom my whole career. And, I would have a jury with 6 African-American jurors and 6 white jurors, and, race, it permeated everything. And so it wasn't something that you ran away from. It was something that you had to take on directly. And the way you took it on most directly was making sure that everything you do as a prosecutor is done in accordance with the rules, the regulations, the procedures, the law, the Constitution, period. And you treated everybody with the kind of respect and civility that every single person deserves. And that was kind of the one way. And I supervised 30 homicide prosecutors at a time with lots of movement through my section. That was our sworn mission. And now When it comes to these vindictive prosecutions, I mean, I think race certainly can factor in. I think obviously politics can factor in, personal grievances. I know Donald Trump wants to be king, but he's really only king of the eternal grievance. That's what this man is. He's got priors now, Don. I don't have to tell you. When it comes to vindictive prosecutions, the man's got priors. Letitia James, James Comey. He now has an attempted prosecution of 6 members of Congress. Think about it. He's trying to abuse prosecutorial power to potentially shift the balance in Congress. This is, you know, as James said, this is something we can never forget. This is something we can never put behind us. And I don't want to hear when the rule of law comes back into the light of day. We got to put this long national nightmare behind us by declining to hold these folk accountable for the crimes they are committing today. That's what we tried with Nixon. It didn't work so well. And in 30 years, I never once sat down with a victim and said, you know how we're going to address your victimization? You know how you're going to put your long personal nightmare behind you? I'm going to decline to hold the person who attacked you accountable. Don't you feel good about your prospects of healing now? No, they all need to be held accountable. No more Merrick Garland, mamby-pambying around. When we come back, when the rule of law comes back into the light of day, we hold these people accountable for what they're doing to you, what they're doing to the Georgia Fort, what they're doing to everybody else who was protesting in that church, what they're doing in court in D.C., trying to indict innocent members of Congress, people who committed no crimes. You know, that is a sin. It's not just an abuse of prosecutorial power.
So, Jolly, stand by. Trust me, I'm going to get to you because I have a plan for you. But I want you to weigh in on this, James, because you know you've been doing this for a while. How does this play into 2026? You know, you have the 6 lawmakers, Democratic lawmakers, that the grand jury just refused to indict. Is this going to be part of the overall narrative? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but coming up in the midterms?
Look, I think people, they're going to want to vote for Democrats. And I'm actually, my advice, and I was out here talking to a bunch of Democratic donors and stuff, and my advice for right now is don't just stand there and do nothing. Okay, all you can do is people want to vote for us. That's pretty clear. All you can do is talk your way out of it. But give me 30 seconds to address something that Glenn was talking about, is accountability.
Yes.
We as Democrats have to take some responsibility for a decision that was made under the administration of President Obama. And I think it was a terrible decision, and that was not to pursue these bankers criminally. Because once people saw that they got away with it, it fed into this narrative that they lead by one set of rules, and the rest of us, if we get a parking ticket, we got to do it. These bankers ended up stealing everything. They ran off. They wrecked the economy. And I understand why President Obama was advised that you don't want to bog down on this. You want to get the country beyond that. But I totally agree with Glenn. I don't want to hear one son of a bitch say, let's move on and don't look back. No. Let's fix that rear view mirror. And there's nothing that will focus the attention like prosecuting these people for all of the wrongs they've done. I really believe that. I have a little bit of an Old Testament justice in me.
So, do you think Democrats this time are going to do that? Because every single time it seems that like, well, we can't do that to the country. We need the country to come back together. We need to heal, because it's just sort of in their nature. But that, as you've been saying, they should have learned their lesson by now. This is for all the marbles.
I couldn't agree more, but sometimes we just have to say we're just too flimsy. I mean, there was this great story about, I read that people that work in Democratic politics in Washington want their weekends off and they want to work from home. What are you doing in politics if that's what you want? Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about, I got to bring Jolly in. Jolly, look, we call you our chief Washington correspondent. You see what James is talking about all the time. What do you say to that?
No, I agree. I think that I'm worried about, will Democrats step up and hold people accountable, because going back to January 1st, January 6, 2021. Donald Trump wouldn't even be in office right now. We wouldn't be dealing with any of this if we held him accountable for what happened then. If Merrick Garland grew a spine, if the Democrats put their foot down, we wouldn't even be here. You know, we didn't hold the Confederacy accountable after the Civil War. That's why we're here. We actually wrote Section 3 of the 14th Amendment after the Civil War so that if you ever tried to overthrow the government, you couldn't serve in the government, much less be president, much less all these other positions that are now in there. I mean, during the congressional hearing yesterday, it was pointed out that Pam Bondi hired on her staff one of the January 6th insurrectionists that was pardoned. So I agree with this assessment that if when this is said and done, that if we don't hold, everyone who's involved accountable, then we're just waiting for it to happen again. I mean, then this is just the dry run for the next time. And I will also say this entire attack on you guys at City's Church protest, 100% rooted in white supremacy, 100% rooted in using black journalists and black leaders and black organizers as the way to scare everybody else out of their First Amendment rights to both protest and the First Amendment right of press. And when you combine that with everything else happening in Minneapolis, which is, attacking protesters on the street, snatching observers off the street, stealing their equipment. I mean, this is just a long string of constitutional violations. And so either we have a constitution or we don't. And if we don't, spring back from this and hold it accountable and demand that we get back in line with that constitution, then please stop talking about it because it doesn't exist.
Charles, I see you wanted to get in. You were raising your hand.
I was co-signing on the article that James was talking about. It's in the Atlantic. It's entitled "Democrats Are Not Built for This Moment," and it does talk about how flimsy, at least the apparatus has been. The Democratic apparatus on a national level is leaving a lot to be desired. But going back to the point that Jolly just made, I think it's very important to understand that in the absence of a DOJ that will do its job to uphold the Constitution objectively and independently, this is where people like Keith Ellison become that much more important. This is where people like Letitia James and other state attorney generals become incredibly important, because it then becomes upon them to find ways in order to try as best as they can to protect the civil rights and liberties of people within their jurisdictions. Do they have the authority and the jurisdiction of a Pam Bondi? Clearly not. But they do have the ability to creatively use the law as a means of trying to hold the line. And so, that's where I have to prop up folks like Keith Ellison who have, decided, like, look, when Harmeet Dillon, who is the head of the DOJ Civil Rights Division, summarily decided almost instantaneously that there would be no investigation into the death of Renee Good, it was Keith Ellison who said, you know what, I'm going to make sure that we look into this and that we stay on top of this. And so for anyone who's watching and trying to sort of think about what Jolly just said and how appropriate it was, and his very passionate discussion of where the Constitution sits right now, do understand that this is where the conversation about all politics being local becomes all the more relevant, because our state attorney generals, our state legislatures, our state judiciaries are the places where people will find or be able to find redress. And Keith Ellison and what he's doing in Minnesota is a big example of that.
All right, I want everybody to stand by because I want to bring in now Congressman Eric Swalwell to join the conversation. Hi, Congressman. We've got Glenn Kirshner,
you got a lot
James
of solid
Carville
friends
here.
in your corner.
Yeah. You see Jolly. You see Mr. Charles Coleman and Monique Presley here.
I wouldn't get in a bar fight with anyone in that crew.
How are you doing? What's going on? What do you think?
I just want you to know we're with you. We had the Attorney General and ICE in front of Congress this week. I asked the Attorney General about the 6 colleagues of mine who a grand jury refused to return indictments against, who we believe they're still seeking to do that, just to show that, when you're a critic, when you step up, when you speak out against this guy, they come after you. And what the public has to know is Democrats are going to do something about it when we're in charge. And if I'm being honest with you, Republicans don't think we have the balls to. They think that we're going to stand on virtue and Mount Olympus, and we're just going to say, well, let's get back to, comedy and bipartisanship. And they expect that what the last DOJ did when they were in there is what the next DOJ will do. And we have to just make it clear that when we're in the majority, their asses are coming into the witness chairs. There's going to be accountability. There's going to be transparency. If you did a dirty deal in any way, it's all coming out. And then the next president has to make clear that, this is not going to be, the kangaroo court type justice that Pam Bondi has sought, that they will seek real justice, and they're not going to have a problem doing it. Their efforts are not going to be rejected by a grand jury because it's going to have the weight of the law behind it, the way it should have happened, frankly, in the last administration. So it's just on us as to what we telegraph, because if I'm being honest, most voters think we're just going to get more Chuck Schumer 8-page strongly worded letters, and it's not going to look much different than that.
Well, I will, James Carville, I don't know if you were listening to our conversation before. James Carville made that very point. And also Charles just pointed out an article that's in The Atlantic that says Democrats weren't built for this moment.
Saw that.
And so, James, I don't know if you want to say anything to Eric Swalwell, but he's basically saying that he's going to do what you were concerned that Democrats won't do in this moment.
Well, first of all, I know Eric will do it. You know why I know Don? Because he's a big New Orleans guy. I had dinner with him in San Diego a few years back. He loves Jazz Fest. He loves our music. He loves our culture. And he's going on to do great things, and he's going to do even greater things. So, Eric, we're all behind you and so admiring of what you're doing. And you're exactly right. If there's no accountability here, we're just going to go through the same thing we go through every time. And we keep saying, well, why does nothing change? And what will change things is put these people in handcuffs and showing, with Nuremberg, they did it. And I give them credit for it. They didn't just say, well, let's just go on, move on. No, you don't just move on. And you look at all of the injustice that's happened, and you got to hold people accountable. It doesn't matter. We hold people accountable for a parking ticket, or we hold people accountable if they break into my car. They should be. We've got to hold people accountable that stormed the government and stole everything. That's accountability too. It's just not accountability for street crime. It's also for massive criminal fraud, and we got to do it. I agree with Glenn.
Eric?
I agree with Charles.
Yeah, well, these guys are publicly executing dissenters in the streets right now, and the bodies are piling up, and people feel helpless. And I'll just tell you, I get that's the worst feeling in the world, is to feel helpless, to feel like you are powerless and you can't do something. And so I tell my colleagues, we are of the burdened and the privileged. We're privileged because we are not helpless. We can actually do something about it, but it's a burden because the weight of what you have to do, and some people are just not up for being in the arena, but you have to embrace it as a privilege. It's a privilege to be in the arena. And James, I've told you this before, but I'll talk to colleagues in the gym, and they'll say to me, their spouse or their friends will say, just don't speak up. It's going to make things uncomfortable at home, or your kids will get harassed at school. And I tell them, well, then find another job. Like that maybe this isn't the job for you if you're not willing to do it. And I also hope I serve with people who are otherwise employable, and that this isn't the only job that you're able to get. But I fear that too many people just fear that they're gonna lose their job, and so they want to speak up. And then this probably isn't the job for you. And I think that's the mindset that Atlantic piece was speaking to, that we all have to have. So Don, I just wanted to pop on and say, yeah, go ahead, James. Yeah.
So the whole joke that the two Jews in a boxcar on their way to Auschwitz, and one looks at the other and says, you think we should say something? And the other guy said, no, you're just going to cause trouble. I mean, it's what John Lewis used to say. Yeah. There's such a thing, and you cause good trouble.
That's right.
And Jared and John and other people, there was good trouble you caused. And it was necessary trouble. And sometimes you got to cause trouble, and that's a very noble and historically very valid thing to do. And I think I speak for all of us. We're all very proud of you.
That's right. And
Thank you.
James, you know what? I also tell folks, I guess my last parting thought, and I love all my friends on here who I see, but I've told my wife and I tell my colleagues, a couple years from now, I don't think any of us are going to look back and ask ourselves, were we too hard on the guy? Or were we too hard on those around him? I think, if anything, we will have a lot of regret, even the people that did the most, that we didn't do enough. That's how we're going to look back on this. And if you carry that mindset, I think you're liberated to do what James just said, which is cause good trouble, necessary trouble. Thank you, Don. We're with you.
Thank you.
I hope you
I
know that.
appreciate it.
I'm a man.
Thank you.
Yep.
And thank you, James. I'm going to let you go.
Thank you,
I
Don.
don't want to take up too much of your time.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
all of us on the panel, and keep causing good trouble. And all you guys. Glenn, I've just asked you one question because you're the lawyer. And does sovereign immunity protect them from everything, or does
No.
that have any possible civil reaction that we can get these bastards under oath?
You know what? We'll never know until we try. Sovereign immunity doesn't protect them from, any crime they could possibly commit. It's an uphill climb. See, and that's why I've been preaching that in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, the state needs to indict the murderers of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, because then what happens? The case gets removed from state court to federal court, and then we litigate the sovereign immunity claim, the qualified immunity claim. It doesn't protect them from murder, because murder is not within the scope of their official
I think Keith will
duties.
do it. He's an old friend of mine. I had him on the podcast. I always laugh with Keith. I met him on the beamer of the biggest synagogue in metropolitan Minneapolis. But I think Keith would have the gumption and the talent and the kind of people to pull something like this off. I really do. And if you could just get them under oath, you're going to strike gold.
Yeah,
Is this sovereign immunity you're talking about, or qualified immunity?
Qualified immunity.
Is it qualified? Okay, but I was in law school, it's like sovereign, but whatever it is, some kind of immunity that people in law enforcement get. But you telling me it's not total? It can
Doesn't
be.
give them carte blanche to commit murder just because they got a badge on their chest and a gun on their hip. No.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Don. We love you, man. All of Louisiana is proud of you. Give Mama a big hug.
Thank you, James.
All the people in Northeast Baton Rouge Parish. Thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. I'm not sure how long do we have you, Glenn? And
I got another 10 minutes if you need me.
And Jolly,
Don, I got
about
4 minutes. I got to hit the road, but I'm sorry. I had told Peter that, but it was last. I want to say this though. I want to say this really quick. I think it's important that Democrats understand, that we all understand, that if you do not hold accountable what's happening now, then sure, we'll win the 2028 elections and we'll have a Democratic president, and we'll have this new little era of no Trump. But as soon as 2032 comes, we're going to get a more radical, worse version, because every single time that we don't hold people accountable, it gets worse. Every single time that we let this Overton window slip more into the radical normalcy of it all, then it's going to get worse. And so I think it's important that we do the hard thing now and hold people accountable now, and do the hard thing now and do something that's probably never been done in American history. But yeah, Nuremberg 2.0 has to take place. I know that might not sit well with everybody, but this is the first time that the Confederate flag marched through the halls of the Capitol was January 6, 2021. It wasn't in 1860 or 61 or 62 or 63. And when we didn't hold the Confederacy accountable, that's how we got MAGA. It's not some philosophical point of view. It's not some hyperbole. That's a matter of fact. And so I was raised under the lost cause mythology. And so if we don't hold this administration accountable now, then the next version of this, which will be around 2032, is going to be far worse.
Yeah. Jolly, thank you very much. How long do we have you, Charles? Are you good for a little bit?
I'm good for a little bit.
Yeah. All right, good for a little bit. Jolly, get out of here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Don.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you. Okay, everybody else stand by. And Monique, I'm glad because we have the lawyers here. I want to talk to you guys about some of the legal stuff, okay? But first, I need to get a word in from our sponsors. Support for our show comes from MSI Reproductive Choices, a global leader in women's reproductive health care. They work across Africa and Asia, serving women who often have little to no access to care. Now, you can find their videos online, women whose farming and fishing livelihoods are being hit hard by climate change and who want family planning tools so that they can decide if and when to start a family. Students who want contraception so they can finish school without the fear of an unplanned pregnancy. Government funding cuts have reduced access to family planning services across Africa. But MSI is still going strong thanks to everyday donors. For just $39, you can provide a full year of contraception for 6 women. That's real impact. So text LEMON to 511-511 or go to msiunitedstates.org. That's M as in modern, S as in safe, I as in informed, msiunitedstates.org. Text LEMON to 511-511 to donate today. Text fees may apply. Support comes from Shopify. Now, when I started the Don Lemon Show, I had to figure out everything. A lot. Scripts, setup, scheduling, branding, all of it. It felt like my to-do list was never ending. It never stopped growing. So if you're building something new, you know that feeling. For millions of businesses, a tool that simplifies all of it is Shopify. Shopify powers millions of businesses worldwide and about 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Now, we use it for our merch, and it makes the whole process seamless. The merch that you love, check it out at Shopify. You get beautiful templates, built-in AI tools that helps write product descriptions and enhance photos, plus easy email and social campaigns to help you find customers. From inventory to international shipping to returns, Shopify handles it all. So if you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Start your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/lemon. That's shopify.com/lemon. Okay, thank you to our sponsors. Let's bring the lawyers back in, our legal minds back in. Okay, so, and this is all, just so you know, Monique, I have a list of what I can and cannot say and let you guys talk about it. So, and this is from my counsel. Today was the first step in exposing this administration's failed plan to stifle me and journalists all over the country. This is what we did today. Today, we served the prosecutors with 2 pages of demands for what they claim is evidence. Today, we announced our intent to have the grand jury transcripts released to show the charges are baseless. And today, we made clear that we will move to dismiss the charges as violating the First Amendment. Who wants to take that on and talk about that? Who wants to go first?
Don, I've been wondering, and I want you to, and I'm sure Monique will kind of sort of laugh, as well as Glenn. I want you to please listen to the questions I'm asking you and answer only the question I'm asking you. Every now and again, during an arraignment or some sort of proceeding, the prosecution or conversely the defense may give on the record some sort of idea as to what evidence they have, what they're holding, or allude to a witness that they are using or intend to use, or something of that nature. Did you hear from the DOJ anything about do they have eyewitness accounts that they are planning to use? Did they give you any sort of preview on the record about the evidence that they have to support these charges?
That was not discussed, and we did not get that today.
Okay, all right. I find that fascinating, and I'll tell you why. And Glenn and Monique will immediately understand where I'm going with this. Obviously, a big majority, and this is not something I'm asking you to respond to, it's commentary that I'm putting out for the audience. Obviously, a big portion of this will evidentiary-wise be supported or refuted by whatever portion or portions of the video and audio that we've already seen. And so to counteract that, it would seem to me that you would either need to provide video, audio that shows something different, and or eyewitness testimony that refutes that. And so I was curious as to whether they are intimating that they have witnesses who are going to say something different, or that they've spoken to people. Sometimes they'll let something like that slip on the record, or they'll intentionally sort of put that out there. But I continue to wonder, given what we have seen, of course, we have not seen all of what is available evidentiary-wise. I continue to wonder how are you going to support these charges? With everything that I've seen. So that's why I asked.
Yeah, so let me build on what Charles was saying. I'm so glad, Don, that I just heard you say your attorney is going to demand the disclosure of the grand jury transcripts. Usually that's not done. Usually the only time we start turning over grand jury transcripts is when we're intending to call the witness who appeared in the grand jury, because then it becomes what's called Jenks information, a prior contemporaneous, largely verbatim statement of a witness. We have an obligation to turn that over to the defense. Why? So the defense attorney can cross-examine the witness with their prior sworn testimony in the grand jury, looking for inconsistencies. But here's the thing. What we know from this administration is they don't give a rat's ass about what their attorneys say before the grand jury. And people should know that when we prosecutors go into the grand jury, yeah, we're presenting the evidence. And frankly, Don, although the Constitution doesn't require us to present what's called Brady or exculpatory evidence, evidence that would cut against the guilt of the target of the grand jury investigation, by DOJ procedure in the U.S. Attorney's Manual, we are required to give that to the grand jury so they have a full picture and appreciation of whether they should vote out an indictment or not. What we know, we've seen it. I was in court for the hearings in the Comey and the James cases before they got thrown out, as well they should have. And what did we learn? We learned that Lindsay Halligan, first of all, was not legally entitled to set foot in the grand jury any more than Bugs Bunny was and indict anybody. And second, she violated all sorts of constitutional principles by what she told the grand jurors. We are not only prosecutors presenting the case to the grand jury, but you know what else we are? We are the legal advisors to the grand jury. We have to tell them if there's evidence that cuts against guilt, if there is a potential defense to what we are asking them to indict, like, the bedrock First Amendment protection, the freedom of the press, we have to address that in the grand jury. I would bet my full $1. That's my max bet. I'm not a gambler. I'm not a high roller. $1. I'll put the full $1 on them not fulfilling their responsibility as legal advisor to the grand jury when they were in there and saying indict Don Lemon, indict the other journalists, indict the other protesters. And I hope and I think this thing is going to fall apart long before you ever see 12 people in a wooden box sitting as a jury in this case.
Monique?
Yeah, I mean, it better fall apart before then, because I fully expect that we'll learn that they went to the grand jury with some posturing and with whatever they thought they could glean together by way of evidence. But if they were really turning over material that would be exonerating of Georgia or Don, then they would have had to give them the entire live stream. And if they gave them the entire live stream, including direct quotes from Don, then there never would have been an indictment. So I'm interested in the grand jury transcript more so for what's not in there, for everything that they thought wasn't necessary to put in there, than I am for what was there. And as the only career defense attorney, this entire setup right now makes me exceedingly nervous. Dawn, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I know Abby's somewhere looking like,
No, because I'm not saying anything. Y'all are saying it.
I do understand, but I do. If I can follow up on a point that Glenn just made, this also
a quick point, if you can, Charles. Sorry, thank you. Go ahead.
Just if I can follow up on a point that Glenn just made about what the DOJ Attorney's Manual says about grand jury presentations, and connect some dots if you've been watching the news. Former SDNY U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara sent out a letter to the DOJ in regards to the 6 legislators, Mark Kelly and the other 5, that they failed to indict, about reminding them for the need to present all of the information as per the DOJ's attorney guidelines, which is very, I want you, for our audience to think about that. You have someone who no longer is affiliated with the DOJ. They are retired from their post as U.S. attorney, who is so concerned about their inability to follow the guidelines of what the DOJ said that they're going to do, that in their capacity as a lawyer and former U.S. attorney, sent a letter to the DOJ to say, I don't know whether you all did what you were supposed to do before, but if you are thinking about presenting this case a second time to a grand jury, you need to remember that everything in the DOJ attorney's manual says that you have to present pretty much the exculpatory stuff as well. And I think that, Don, in your case, again, I'm not asking you to respond to that. That sort of guideline will become relevant when we start having access or have an opportunity, if we get to that point, of seeing what the grand jury was given. And it's going to, Monique's point, be very, very telling.
All right. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate it. I feel like I've kept you guys for too long, but thank you. Very solid points. Remember, Monique, I didn't say anything. So
No, you did great. You know why? Because you have the right to remain silent. Yep. Surely
thank
do.
you. Monique, are you going to stay with us through the hour?
Yep, I'm here for the next cast.
All right, stay. Thank you, Charles. Thanks, you, Glenn.
Don. We're with
All
you.
right.
We're with you.
All right, I appreciate you guys so much. I want to bring in now some great folks who are here. Jay Jordan is a stand-up comedian, a friend of the show. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley has served Massachusetts' 7th congressional district since 2019, and Jack Cocciarella is here, the host of the Jack Cocciarella Show on YouTube and a contributor to the Bulwark. So thank you all for being here. Congresswoman, we know that you are part of the Lemon Nation, as you have told us before, and I haven't spoken to you since this all happened. And remember, this is my first court appearance today, and so I know you've been paying attention. What do you have to say?
Well, first, I just want to say that we don't play about you. And you have not only some righteous ancestors on your side, and I'm talking about Ida B. Wells and Max Robinson, and because you honor that tradition. And it is certainly no surprise and a very consistent, unrelenting, and coordinating attack in this administration's hostilities of fascism and anti-Blackness, where we are daily managing legislated systemic attacks on Black people, Black bodies, Black votes, Black progress, Black power, and Black press. And, I just first just want to ask, how are you? We have all been so worried about you. And my cousin here, Monique, you see the cheekbones, you see the red lip, you see the black, you see the hoops. Okay. But she was giving you the best counsel. Keep it cute and mute, Don. Okay?
Yeah, well, you notice I said I didn't hear any of that, and that was it. That's all I said. I don't recall hearing any of that. And then I was like, I can't answer that. So, and that's what I will continue to do. So thank you so much.
Solidarity, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Look, and I got to tell you, Congresswoman, as I have been, you're talking about the ancestors and all of the Ida B. Wells, Max Robinson, who was one of my, come on, Max was bad. That was a bad mother, shut your mouth, right? I used to watch him and Peter Jennings and Frank Reynolds, and it was Peter Jennings in London, Frank Reynolds in New York, and Max Robinson in Chicago. And I've wanted to be him and Brian Gumbel growing up, and here I am. So thank you for that. I've been telling this story, and Monique has heard it, and Congresswoman, I'm not sure if you've heard it, but I've been out and about, and everywhere I go, women, especially Black women, walk up to me now and say, hey, I know this sounds weird, but can I give you a hug? And that's how I know that this resonates beyond me, because they're thinking about their family members, perhaps themselves, who, just going about their daily lives, doing their jobs. And because someone doesn't like what you're saying or what you're doing, they try to take your freedom. And I think that's resonating with people.
Yeah, well, look, I have to say, my father, he's retired now, but for many years he was a professor of journalism and taught a class specifically on the role of the Black press, and that it played in the Great Migration, in Black migration. So again, you're honoring an incredible tradition of speaking truth to power, and under a fascist state where a dictator does not want a citizenry that is informed. They want a citizenry that is ignorant and uninformed. and only accessing propaganda. They want a citizenry that is indifferent to the suffering of their neighbors. They want a citizenry that is inactive. So when you steward your platform so righteously, exercising your constitutional rights, and you are just reporting the facts, being a journalist, that flies in the face of all of that, because information is power, and you are empowering people with information. You're also giving them agency and telling their own story. You're also fostering empathy and compassion, and you're also stoking people's consciousness to be active. So all of those things are antithetical to a fascist state, and what the occupant of the Oval Office wants in this moment. And so, as a Black journalist, you always knew that you could be endangering yourself, your reputation, your livelihood. But now it's your freedom and your life. And I have to tell you that the day that you were arrested was the day after I left Minnesota and had been meeting with Georgia Ford and Nakima. I was there with my sister in service, Representative Omar. And it was so chilling that mere hours later, you were arrested.
Thank you, Congress. And I appreciate your service. Jay Jordan, make sure you're not muted. Jay Jordan, I want to bring you in because Jay, even in your I really enjoy hearing from people who are on the comedian side, because I think people often learn through comedy, because you sort of soften the beach and then they go, they'll think about it, they'll laugh about it, and then think about it in their lives. And that's why I love the type of comedy that you do. And you don't shy away from doing political comedy. And it's a way of teaching and informing people, quite frankly, in a couple of different ways, I believe very important ways, about the power of the First Amendment.
Yeah, the power of the First Amendment. I say when I do my comedy, I'm trying to put cheese on the broccoli. I'm trying to get people their vegetables, which is knowing the history of this country, knowing the current state of things, but also understand that we can laugh at this, because as Black people, Jack, you in this with us too. As Black people, we are going to have to both be informed and be persistent, but also laugh through this. Don, you are part of the culture war now. They think that they can legislate everything Black and brown away. Don, they're taking you to court, and they're taking Bad Bunny to court because their penises moved during the halftime show. They got a little too horny. They said, ooh, I want some tostones. Ooh, I want some pernil. They are so scared because there is a cultural shift and a cultural wave that they are losing. They took a big L on Sunday, and they continue to take them. And you are part of this narrative for them, because they think because you're Black, because you're queer, because you're Southern, because you're independent, you're going to be an easy target. And they were surprised by the groundswell of support. They were surprised by the amount of people who said, wait a second, this is not okay. We're attacking journalists. They're surprised at the amount of people. They said, wait a second, Jimmy Kimmel's having him on? You betcha. So I am always happy as a comedian to take some of these not so funny moments and try to wring some humor out of them. And we have to also, once again, say, Tim was serving looks and serving face the whole time. So we have to laugh through this, but yeah, that's what I try to do as a comedian. So thank you for letting me even have this platform, Don. And thank you for your hard work and your journalistic integrity.
Oh, I appreciate
once again,
that.
I'm putting on my lawyer glasses. Don't say nothing. Don't say nothing.
I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah.
Jack Cocciarella, do you agree with Jay that they didn't expect the public sentiment and what's happened since?
Well, I think this is kind of the first thing that came to my mind when I saw the news originally was, why does Donald Trump want to lose another fight? Right? This is a man who is completely politically impotent. He's seeing Republicans turn on him across the country, in Congress, his own base. Why does he want to have to deal with you and Lemon Nation now? I don't get it. And especially, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't put my lawyer glasses on. But as it stands right now, Don, I don't know if you know, but the Dow is below 50,000. So that's a pretty big blow to the Pam Bondi legal argument there. I don't know what they're going to be able to do with that. But it makes me think about how a year ago today, I think it was exactly a year ago today, J.D. Vance, with his finger-wagging, smug assholiness, was in Munich talking about how across Europe is where you were seeing the suppression of free speech, and that it was Britain and it was France and it was anyone but J.D. Vance who would then, put college students in detention facilities, who wants to lock up you, who wants to see, journalism crumble across the country. And it's this administration who has attacked free speech more than maybe any other, that a year ago that they were complaining about it. And I think that that level of projection is what we can always expect from Donald Trump and JD Vance. But to your question, am I surprised at the public sentiment? I'm familiar with elimination. No, I am not. I'm not surprised that people are turning out, but I am surprised that Donald Trump wants to continue to lose in court. It just kind of seems like the thing he enjoys most, though, at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine being on the wrong side, though. Imagine being on the side that's against Don Lemon, a man who just makes sure we have fun on New Year's, and a 5-year-old boy. Imagine being like, yeah, I'm on the side against Liam Ramos. Just imagine the lunacy. It's horrible marketing from a PR standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, except for the complete lack of humanity. Hello, cousin. Good to see you. And Mike, I have a question more than a comment, and I think it's based on what Congressman Swalwell was saying. This is for Congresswoman Presley and for Don, because so many people, Congresswomen, are saying everybody needs to speak out. People need to do more. More is never more. It's never enough. And especially where members of Congress are concerned, we're seeing real danger. Not just in getting arrested like Nakima, but in threats to your life and having to add on additional security and those things. And now that's part of what the job is. And so people are saying, well, if they don't want to do the job, then they shouldn't run. But now it's journalists. If you don't want to be arrested, then don't report the news. I'm just wondering where personal safety for you now is intersecting with public responsibility and what that balance looks like as we go forward and we are in the fight of our lives.
You're talking to me or the Congresswoman? Were you
I'm
asking
talking to the Congresswoman and then you, Don.
Okay, can you just stand by because I want to bring someone in, and then Congresswoman, you can add that. Francesca Fiorentini is a political commentator, comedian, and the host of the Bituation Room podcast, and she joins us now. Thank you, Francesca. I can't wait to hear your perspective, but I want to get the response now from the
Yes, please.
Well, again, I just want to say I had to be here in solidarity with you, Don, and I'm honored to sit at this virtual table with these esteemed experts. Monique, what I would say is that I've been asked really since January 7th, do I feel safe? And my response has always been the same. I'm a Black woman in America, and I've been, Black all my life and a woman, for most of it. And so, having a comma and a title after my name and working in Congress in no way inoculated me. In many ways, it has made that those vulnerabilities more acute. But I will not shrink because history has shown us that appeasement does not work. And so for whatever risks I have to take on, again, I'm trusting, the ancestors to cover us all because we're all bringing our gifts to the resistance in this moment. And we must, because this is not about how to survive the next 3 years. We are shaping the next 100. So, everything is at stake. And this is a threat to everyone. I will lift up that although I do believe Black journalists are being targeted, that on the attacks on free speech, my own constituent, Ramesa Ozturk, the charges against her were just dropped. She was a Turkish national, student visa, studying, getting her PhD in childhood development. That is hardly the worst of the worst. Disappeared on her way to Ramadan. And then taken to Texas, and I went there, and many of us, fought for her. But the reason she was disappeared is because she was centering the humanity of all people, including Palestinians, in an op-ed. She wrote an op-ed, and they did not like that. So this threat is this harm is coming for everyone. Black folks are always disproportionately and marginalized people going to bear the brunt, but this eroding of our constitutional rights, that is coming for everyone. And that's why everyone should give a damn about what's happening to Don.
Thank you very much. Hello, Francesca.
Hi, and thank you, Representative, for that. And also just thank you for your work in standing by Ramesa Ozturk these many, many, many months. I think also, you're someone who represents a progressive edge of your party, and thankfully, because let's remember that I think a lot of the Biden era policies began some of this targeting of Palestinian speech and people speaking out against genocide. And so sometimes our own Democrats set up Republican fascists if and when they get into power. And we need people like Representative Presley who do not do that, who do not capitulate, and who will not, sell out the First Amendment, no matter what the issue is. So that, as we say, sometimes Democrats, they load the gun and Republicans shoot it. And then we're like, what happened? And it's like, well, we really should have been doing more work in those 4 years interim, the transitional presidency between one Trump administration and another. Not that I'm bitter, to actually undo some of these things that were set up. So anyway, just a gratitude to you, and of course to you, Mr. Don Lemon, out here looking good as always, and fighting this. Any other all these other news outlets with millions of dollars, billions of dollars behind them, they capitulate, and you don't. So
Thank
happy to
you,
be here.
Francesca, for that. Congresswoman, I appreciate you joining us. Thank you. I don't want to monopolize your time. Jay, I don't know how much time you have, or Jack, I don't know how much time I don't want to monopolize anyone's time. So we appreciate it. If you guys have to drop off, I understand, but I got to get a word in from our sponsors. 2 minutes. This episode is brought to you by Graza, makers of seriously fresh olive oil. Graza is my olive oil of choice. It's fresh, never blended, made from top quality olives, and you can see the harvest date. It's right on the bottle. So they've got sizzle for everyday cooking, sauteing, roasting, and marinating. Drizzle is that bowl finishing oil that takes a salad or grilled vegetables or everything to a whole new level. And then there's frizzle. It's built for high heat cooking, like if you just right for my steaks. They even have olive oil mayo and garlic aioli in stores right now. So I cook a lot and I host a lot. Quality olive oil matters, and you can taste the difference. Go to graza.co and use the code LEMON for 20% off of your first order, and grab their mayo at your local grocery store. It's delicious. Mwah. This episode is brought to you by Wild Grain. Wild Grain is the first baked from frozen subscription box for sourdough breads, pastries, and fresh pastas. Everything bakes in 25 minutes or less. They use simple ingredients you can pronounce and a slow fermentation process. No preservatives, no shortcuts. The boxes are customizable. They've got a variety box, gluten-free, vegan, a new protein box, and I love having our artisan bread ready to go right in my freezer. It makes weeknight dinners easy and weekend brunch feels special. So right now you can get $30 off of your first box plus free croissants for life at wildgrain.com/lemon. That's wildgrain.com/lemon, or use the promo code LEMON at checkout. Thanks to our sponsors. Thank you to our sponsors. And wild is a way that you can describe what is going on in this country right now. We're back now with Monique Presley, also Jack Cocciarella, Jay Jordan, and Francesca Fiorentini. The Congresswoman, as I said, we don't want to monopolize her time. She is very busy, and we appreciate Congresswoman Ayanna Presley, who is part of the Lemon Nation. What were you saying, Francesca? What were you thinking? You're shaking your head there.
No. I was just thinking, just the state that we're in. And I was saying that I feel like the last year has been so dark for obviously the reasons of authoritarianism, the 1% and the billionaires, really acting like this is the last 10 years they're ever going to get, and they know that people are about to rise up. So they're just going to get what they can and leave. And how the added capitulation and collaboration of media and legacy media, now in the most recent news with the Washington Post firing hundreds of people, one who was actively deployed in Ukraine and was like, I'm in a war zone. My friend who had a cover story on the Washington Post that day was fired. Like, all of these media organizations are failing us and not standing up. And then you have yourself who, you're out here solo. You've got obviously so much support. But also you're someone who, even independently, you're bringing people like me on, people who are maybe, more lefty, more whatever. You got Jay on, we've got comedians. Like, I appreciate the space that you've even created. And even the fact that you were in that church, you were listening to the actual organizers. That's more than so many legacy news outlets have done, which is actually listening to the people of Minneapolis, trying to do this investigation. Why was it left to the activists to find out what role, and I know you can't speak a lot about it, but if there was a role that pastor was playing when it came to ICE operations? That should not be left to activists to do that work.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, and then I'll go to the other folks. You mentioned that what happened with legacy media, and that it's been sort of perplexing, not perplexing, but flummoxing for me to see that coming from there and to watch, sort of the capitulation. I saw it coming. I think that I was a canary in the coal mine, right? When because I stand by. You guys see me on. Some folks, you see me on television when I was on CNN. And folks, now most of our viewers, by the way, watch on their television for even here on YouTube. But you saw what I did while I was in front of the camera when the cameras were rolling and you got to see it. But you didn't know the fight that I was having behind the scenes about election deniers, insurrection deniers, liars, insulters, all of those people coming on, over-indexing of MAGA, all of the things, Francesca. So people didn't see that. And that was really what led to my demise in corporate media, was that fight of just trying to hold true to the things that I thought were important and the tenets of journalism and the Constitution and the freedom of the press. Francesca.
Yeah, no, I think I appreciate that context, because I think how it was spun was obviously very different. But imagine yourself now at CNN trying to, and I know obviously you've got lots of colleagues and friends, but trying to sort of,
And they've been very supportive. They've been very supportive. Yeah.
Right. And that's great. But like trying to eke it out, and again, it is about the consolidation of the media. Again, it's about battle lines have been drawn, y'all. And this is what I'll say. Look, I love that, the Democrats that fight, but we cannot compete when it comes to which party is going to cozy up to billionaires more, right? Like the billionaires know it's the Republican Party. They're like, oh, okay, you'll like take money from my crypto pack, but like, will you let me privatize a city in Honduras? Or like, will you let me turn Puerto Rico into my own personal, like second home, the whole of Puerto Rico? No. Well, then you're out. Like, I feel like the battle lines were drawn as soon as Donald Trump was sworn into office, flanked by the titans of tech. Everyone who gave lip service to, the corporate lip service to racial justice, which is DEI, important, but a very small fraction of racial justice. And you saw they were like, oh, immigrant rights, DEI, diversity. Oh, no, hell no. We don't care about any of that, because we know where our bread is buttered. That is why. And again, I said this when you weren't on. I don't love that people have to support 5-7 different independent creators with their own money. But that's where we are,
That's where we are.
One day, we'll band together, we'll make a network, who knows? But like, this is where we are because of we've kind of been left high and dry.
I agree. And this is why a couple of things that are very important to me, and I want you guys to weigh in on this. Jay, this is for you because, look, I know that, when I was in legacy media, it wasn't a big deal to be nominated for things. But when you're out here on these independent streets and you're fighting for everything, you don't have the big corporate sponsors, you gotta keep the lights on. You got to keep, you have to prop up a business. You got Jack, right? It ain't Francesca, and Monique, it ain't easy. So Jay, yes, as well.
Yeah.
We're out there hoofing it, right? So
Yeah.
listen, this is why it's important to go to donlemon.com, please, Andy, and put this up, because I was floored when we were nominated for 4 NAACP Image Awards. And so if you guys go to the top of donlemon.com, you click on donlemon.com and go to the top, we put it up there because we think it's a big deal. It's an honor to be nominated, but all you have to do is just follow our instructions and go 1, 2, 3. I'll show you the first one. I can tell you how you can vote. But anyway, you click on Outstanding Podcast, whatever, Society and Culture, and all you do is hit vote, and then you back out of that, back to donlemon.com, and just follow that step all the way through. And that's how you can. So please support us for 4 NAACP Image Awards. Jay, talk about the importance of that, especially as an independent journalist or media. That's something.
I think Francesca hit the nail on the head. The fact that so much of this is all tied to corporate overlords, the fact that everyone is trying to get their hand in the pot on how to influence things, the fact that a journalist and a stand-up comedian and lawyers can all come together and say, hey, maybe we don't want our entire existence to be governed by the same people who greenlit Yellowstone. I don't want the Ellisons to tell me what to do comedically or politically. I don't want to have to ask Billy Bob Thornton if I should vote and also what's going on in this newest episode of Landman. I do not think that they need to be involved in everything. Why is Jeff Bezos telling me which grass-fed whey protein I'm supposed to pick up from Amazon? I don't get why they have to be involved in everything. It's a disease, it's a sickness, and the only cure is independent media that is independent of these corporate overlords. And the sad part is they know that there's a power in this. They know there's a grassroots movement in this. So they have to come after you. They think you're vulnerable. They think all of us are vulnerable. It's the same reason why they go, oh, we're going to attack these smaller people. We can't attack these larger people because we're financially invested or because we know they have lawyers. It's the same reason that Trump says, oh, well, you know, I beat that case at ABC because ABC has the money to go, you know what, if this money will shut you up. They think that you don't have that support. They also don't understand. We've seen over the past 2 days, they don't understand any of the legal proceedings. Unfortunately, I'm here in Florida because I saw Pam talking shit. I said, let me fly down. Let me come to Fort Lauderdale, see what's up. I'm actually going on a cruise. My first cruise, I take that back. My first cruise was actually in Central Park. But this is a different kind of cruise. I am working. So I'm just so happy to see so many people celebrate you. I'm happy to see ABC and legacy media also know that they have to highlight this story. So once again, shout out to Jimmy Kimmel. I can't necessarily shout out Bob Iger because I don't know if he's a robot or not, but we can shout out Jimmy Kimmel. He had Don and Jimmy Kimmel went through the same thing. Stephen Colbert went through the same thing. So you have to understand, these evil, rich men are also coming for the straight, white, centrist, moderate, slightly left men as well. It's not going to end. I was on a flight to Florida today, and I heard two older white men speaking at full volume, my God, on the airplane.
They love to do that.
But both of them said that this is embarrassing. And they didn't mean, oh, I've always been progressive. What they meant is this is starting to make everyone look bad. This is starting to really affect their pocketbooks. This is starting to affect the way they see themselves. This is a reflection of them. They're having a hard time recognizing themselves in this movement because it's gotten so authoritarian. It's gotten so fascistic. It's gotten so ugly.
Jack Cocciarella, independent media journalist, host.
Yeah. Thanks. There's a couple of titles. I think that more so than just embarrassing, it just also makes everything shittier. Like I'm not a person who's used TikTok just out of fear of what it will do to my attention span. But, you know, Larry Ellison takes over TikTok and everything gets a lot worse, of course, because anyone willing to call out the regime, you get suppressed. Anyone willing to call a genocide, you get suppressed. And it's crazy how the people with real values are also the most entertaining people, the most honest people, the most authentic people, the most real people, the people that you're going to want to engage in. And when Larry Ellison comes in, or when, you know, he's buying TikTok or he's buying CBS or they're taking over whatever, things get a lot worse. There has been a real, what are we calling it now? The enshittification of our media and things more broadly, because when the billionaires come in and they're cutting costs and they're pushing out slop and everything's generic, it makes your life a lot worse. And there are some people who like Yellowstone. Good for them. I haven't checked it out. I've seen like a clip or two. It seems strange. John Hamm in it. I don't know. His other stuff may be better. He likes Bad Bunny. Shout out to John Hamm.
I like John Hamm and Bad Bunny concerts. Like that's
I can do that.
You're talking about Juan Hamon? That's Juan Hamon. He's around Bad Bunny.
John Hamm also not a bad looking guy. So I'm fine with John Hamm, but they make things worse. And I think people should also wake up to that. That when they buy in mass, it makes our lives just a little bit worse every single day. And they don't really care. They don't really care about us. Hopefully people also wake up to that the purpose is to hurt us, to make us uncomfortable, to make us feel worse. So that's my pitch for maybe a little independent support. It goes a little longer than watching the Ellison slop, whatever it is that day.
And
to
thank
that
you,
point,
Jack. I understand you got to go. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, Jay,
yeah,
if I was going to get a little love, I'll
Jack,
stick around for a little
to
love.
that point, the inshitification is manifest just today. Donald Trump said that, I think the IRS, and by the IRS, I mean the American taxpayers, owe me $10 billion.
Yep.
He taking money from the American taxpayers. The grade of the president is your life better than it was before I was in office? Demonstrably, objectively, numerically, economically, no. And what's worse, the vibes are off. My God.
Terrible.
Yeah.
It's a vibe crisis.
Monique Presley.
We are living what we voted for. Or more correctly, what we didn't vote for, those who didn't bother to show up to vote. And I think the non-voter needs to understand that there is real blood on your hands, real blood. And there's arrested journalists on your hands. And there's hundreds of thousands of people who have lost employment, and it's on your hands. And no, it's not the same as if you were the ICE agent who was in the street and murdered someone. And no, it's not the same as if you were the DOJ reckless barnyard junkyard Bondi who's telling her agents to go and arrest Don and arrest Georgia. It's not the same as if you are the direct responsible party, as we would talk about in the law. The reason you are responsible is because you failed to act when you had an opportunity the first week of November 2024. And for anybody right now who thinks it wasn't really going to be this bad, if that's what you were thinking, or it doesn't really matter which party, if that's what you were thinking, or, you know, we'll watch something else on TV. We don't really need free news. We don't really need independent journalism. Whatever it was that you didn't give a damn enough about in order to show up and early vote, in order to send in your vote, in order to stand in the cold or in the rain or in the heat or in the bright sunny day and vote. This is your country that we are living in right now. And I can blame billionaires, and I can blame Trump, and I can blame Bundy, and I can blame Noam. We can blame all those people, but all of those people are who got in office because you didn't go to vote.org and figure out if you were registered to vote. Please do that. You didn't then find out your precinct. Please do that. You didn't then make sure everybody in your household was ready to vote. Please do it now and then start working. We got like a 10-month stint in prison that we're serving between now and November 5th of this year. Please do the work so we can stop having these conversations and get back to talking about something that makes sense.
Well, that's a good thing. That's a mic drop right there. Thank you, Francesca. Thank you, Jay, and Monique. Thank you for all the hard work she's been going at it for hours. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
all of you.
she held it down.
I know.
That was a marathon.
On marathon day, oh my goodness,
Marathon
Monique
day,
was in and out. She was hosting, she was guesting, she was tossing to other people.
Yes, it was amazing.
Shout out to Monique. And Don, so good to see you. So good to see you happy. I know I text you, but I'm so happy. I don't know what you can or can't say, but damn it, you look good. You look
I know.
good.
Isn't that annoying how good he looks?
I mean, wow.
Oh, wow. I'm
love
hang out with
you,
guys
very
more
happy.
often. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Okay. Thank you. I'll see you soon. Monique, you got dinner and a bunch of things coming. All right. Thank you. We'll see you guys. So look, I just want to tell you this. It's very important to me that we protect the First Amendment. We protect freedom of speech. You guys, I just want to show you real quick up there where we have it. You can go vote for us at donlemon.com. Just go to donlemon.com. It's at the top of the page for an NAACP Image Awards. I think today is the last day, so make sure you get on there and do it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Also, if you go back to donlemon.com, I want to show you this. Of course, you can subscribe to the channel. We would love that. All you have to do is click that. See that button? Right at the top there are a couple of buttons that you can press. Hit that watch button and you can become a subscriber on the YouTube, and also you can become a member. Hit that join button to show you the memberships are extremely reasonable. You guys spend more money on coffee or gum or whatever it is than on a membership for us. And if once you get to the top tier of our membership, you get to be on the show just like the guests that we had on. So check that out. Back out of that and go back to donlemon.com. And I want to take you to the Twitch button as well. Twitch is at where it says stream all the way to the right, twitch.tv twitch.tv/Don Lemon. You can go and become a subscriber or a member there as well. Hello, Lemonheads over on Twitch. And then back out of there and go down a little bit to Substack. Same thing. You can go to Substack, become a member on Substack. We're live on Substack as well. Become a member or subscriber. Appreciate all of that. Okay, all hi Substackers. Hello, Lemonheads on Substack. And then back out of that, and then see that merch button. Look, if you want to know about the merch, if you want to purchase something, do it. But what I'm encouraging people to do, go on there and purchase whatever you want. But see these shirts that we have at the top and the sticker. This is for the cause. And click on that, Andy, so that folks can see it. We've got t-shirts, sweatshirts, or whatever. And every single dollar penny goes to the Committee to Protect Journalists. And it says, we will not be silenced. And then it says, what does it say? Click on that. Oh, wait, let me get bigger here so that I can see. Yeah, we will not be silenced. We stand with independent journalism, the Don Lemon Show. So go click on that, buy it, check it out, buy it, whatever it is that you want to do. But everything goes to the Committee to Protect Journalists. And so we appreciate that. Okay, so be informed without being inundated. Thank you for your support. It's been a hell of a day, a hell of a couple weeks. But be informed without being inundated until I see you back here Monday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time. But I'll probably see you over the weekend. Make sure you check out our stuff on the weekend. Our stuff on the weekends we do sort of a review and some new things that sort of intertwine in that. So those will drop. And also I want to say happy Valentine's Day, Lemon Nation. Heart. Love you guys so much. And what else do I want to say? Okay, so we support each other here in the independent journalism realm that we're in right now. And so by doing that, in order to support one of my colleagues, this is what is happening. Just to show you, this is how much I support independent journalism with the shirts, and also with Joy Reid. So Joy is on now at 6 o'clock. And when this is done, you're going to get a redirect to Joy's show. So I'm sending my audience over to Joy. Go check her out and support independent journalism and independent media. Okay. So be informed without being inundated until I see you back here next time. Turn the TV off.
Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a show. We're live every weekday at 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern time with new clips dropping at 2 p. and 8 p. And if you want even more Don Lemon Show content, join the Lemon community. Members get exclusive posts, behind-the-scenes videos, and live chats just for you. So hit the join button or visit our channel page to sign up. Thanks again for all your love and your support, and I'll see you next time.